Welcome to this meeting of the Board of Education of Anne Arundel County. Please stand for today's invocation, followed by the pledge. O God, we pray to administer that which is just in all educational policies, being ever mindful of your guidance. Stir us to action with love, wisdom, and understanding. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome to this meeting of the Board of Education. This meeting is being televised live on AACPS TV and live streamed on the internet. General information and protocols for the meeting are posted on the sign by the doorway as you enter the room, so please make sure you read those if you have not already. Item number 2.03 is approval of the minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any board discussion or edits to the minutes? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The minutes are approved. Item 2.04 is establish agenda order. Would any member like to add anything that's currently not published on the written agenda? Seeing none, the agenda will stand as published. Item 2.05 is formal board recognitions, and there are none today. We'll move to item 2.06, Educator of the Month, and we'll turn to Ms. Alvey.
Today we recognize a teacher who has just started her 20th year at Southern High School. Miss Marlene Kramer, art teacher and department chair. It goes without saying that she's been an integral contributor to the success of the visual arts program, being well known throughout the nation as an exemplary program for everyone to follow. Ms. Kramer assisted in building the art department from a 2-member staff to a 5-member staff as the growth of the student artists has more than doubled at Southern. She embraces our signature design, preservation and innovation, and our AVID program, working with coordinators to embrace her teaching through each program's tenets. Ms. Kramer is an unofficial mentor to new hires within the art department, as well as a role model to the students at Southern High School. She focuses on building relationships with her students through an inviting classroom environment, engaging her students in conversation about their future aspirations, and even motivating the most struggling artist. In addition to her department responsibilities, she has an integral role in the Art Quest event, a stable community event in the Southern Cluster and one of the most well-attended events at Southern High School. Additionally, she dedicates weekends and evenings to students from all over the county, assisting with the AACPS Gifted Visual Arts program. Ms. Kramer is professional in her interactions with stakeholders and regularly advocates for students while maintaining positivity. She values her responsibilities, meets all deadlines well in advance, and goes above and beyond the job description. She supports she supports school administration by embracing structures and practices that support all students at Southern High School. Ms. Kramer is a respected member of the school community. She establishes strong relationships with her colleagues, many of which seek her input and advice. She provides engaging and creative instruction for her students and is a constant for them, providing a safe, nurturing, and trusting learning environment. A former student described Ms. Kramer as sunny, bubbly, and genuine. Everyone who comes into contact with her can't help but smile and laugh. She truly is one of the kindest teachers who brings out the very best in everyone around her. So for these reasons and more, the board congratulates you on your selection as Educator of the Month for October 2019. Please join me in the front.
And Mary Davis, my art coordinator.
Awesome.
And I thought I was speaking today, so I was really nervous. And look, I have my flash drive ready for art show.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations. Item 2.07 is Employee of the Month, and for that, we'll turn to Mrs. Ellis.
Good morning. Substitute teachers are considered the unsung heroes for schools when a teacher is unexpectedly on leave for the day. Their ability to be flexible and go with the flow are often unintentionally overlooked. For Corcoran Middle School, having a permanent substitute on staff with great leadership skills and rapport with people of all ages is invaluable. Today, the board congratulates Dexter Dunbar. Mr. Dunbar provides meaningful instruction to students in all content level classrooms with their when their assigned teacher is absent. He excels at reviewing and implementing the assigned teacher's routines, procedures, lesson plans, and curriculum objectives. Most importantly, because of the positive relationships he has built with Corcoran students and staff, he is able to effortlessly establish and maintain a safe and orderly classroom environment. What sets him apart from his colleagues is his extraordinary ability to connect with the many types of diverse student groups he teaches. He is articulate both in writing as well as speaking and is an effective communicator. He has high energy, is always on the move, and works as an essential team member at Corcoran Middle School. Dexter is also the personification of calmness in tough situations, changing classrooms while flawlessly and tactfully dealing with teacher and student concerns. He accomplishes all tasks with great initiative and a positive attitude. Because of Dexter's hard work and ambition, he is now a full-time special education teacher at Corcoran Middle School. He has proven that dedication and the desire to make a difference for Corcoran Middle School students has positive outcomes. We congratulate you on your selection as Employee of the Month for October 2019. Please join me up front.
For a first year teacher's plan.
And who do you have with you today?
Assistant Principal S.G.O., and he's definitely caught me off guard with this one.
And that's for you.
Oh, man, I'm here shaking the first time.
All
wow.
Right,
Congratulations. Thank you.
Item 2.08 is Volunteer of the Month, and we'll turn to Mrs. Hummer.
There are volunteers, people who give their time willingly and generously and without expectation of anything in return. And then there are community builders, people who have an uncanny knack for bringing people together to make positive change in their world. Today we are here to celebrate the dedication of a person who serves as both a volunteer and community builder, Ms. Samantha Weaver. The Board of Education is thrilled to honor you as our October 2019 Volunteer of the Month. Samantha Sam Weaver is president of the PTA, but she is also in so many ways the face of the Nantucket community as a whole. Volunteer, community builder, PTA president, fundraiser, advocate, kindness spreader, ambassador, these are all words to describe Mrs. Weaver. Whether she is raising money for Chromebook carts or picnic tables, organizing the latest community PTA event at Nantucket, helping out with reading intervention programs, or handing out flyers door to door to keep families informed about the redistricting process, Ms. Weaver does it all with enthusiasm and without expectation for recognition. Her focus on improving the Nantucket community is unparalleled. She participates in all school events and welcomes new parents at both kindergarten orientation and sneak a peek at your seat. According to Assistant Principal Megan Edwards, she is often the first parent new families meet when they join the Starfish family. Ms. Edwards goes on to describe Sam as a force for good in the community. She is not alone in this assessment. Ms. Weaver's colleague on the PTA, Robin Cohen, says, Sam is motivated to make Nantucket Elementary School the best school it can be. Fellow volunteer Kristen Caminetti says, Sam's efforts have made me prouder to be a part of this community than I have ever been. And Principal Alexis McKay says, if the school is in need of anything, I know I can reach out to Samantha and it will get done. Ms. Weaver's talents are not contained to the schoolhouse walls. She is also a single mom who is actively involved with 2 nonprofit organizations in her community. Ms. Edwards says Ms. Weaver is better known as Energizer Bunny, a nickname that will certainly be of no surprise to those who know her. She is the definition of a truly outstanding human being and deserves to be recognized as Volunteer of the Month for her commitment and dedication to both Nantucket and the larger AACPS community. Ms. Weaver, would you please come forward?
That's the point. So how did they get you here?
I was told Nantucket was receiving an award.
And they were. And so who else here with you today?
Oh my goodness, our principal, Alexis McKay, coordinator, Robin Cohen, the PTA secretary. My daughter is here. Our PTA treasurer, Jennifer Cavan, and community leader, Kristen Caminetti.
So you got quite the crowd.
And your mom. And my mom, I'm sorry. Don't forget my mom.
Well, thank you so much for all you do. You have a bell, so now you can get all their attention.
There you go.
Yes, ring it loud. And so, congratulations.
Thank you.
And for today's honorees, we will be recessing momentarily to do some photos out in the lobby. Item 2.09 is school and community highlights. Dr. Arlotto.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Gillen. I just want to let everybody know that after many years of work on behalf of the school system and the county government, we will be moving not all, but most of our graduations to the new Live Event Center at the Live Hotel and Casino starting this spring. So beginning with this spring, on Monday, June 1st, Meade High School will be our first school to utilize this new venue, 4,000-seat venue. We're really excited about bringing graduations back into the county. So that will begin this spring. We're very excited about that partnership, and this information will be going out live later today. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Arlotto. I got corrected by the superintendent. I said, the graduations are going to the casino. And he said, don't say the casino, and yet you just said casinos.
No, I used the name. Thank you.
Any other school and community highlights? Seeing none, item 2.10 is the CAC report. Ms. Howard could not be here today and regrets not being able to be here because of a conflict. So at this point, we will take a 10-minute recess to do the photos in the lobby. Thank you so much. Okay, the board will now reconvene, and we'll turn to public comment. Anyone wishing to speak on an item not on today's agenda may offer testimony during this public comment portion of the meeting. Speakers are allotted 3 minutes each and may not allocate their time to others. A tone will sound when time has expired. The board asks that comments remain civil and appropriate for the various audiences that may be watching or viewing this meeting. Student-specific and personnel matters are confidential and cannot be discussed in this forum. It is not the board's general practice to engage in a question and answer session with speakers. For the record, please give your name before speaking, and handouts should be given to the board assistant. We've got 3 cards. Shanita Vanish, I hope I said that right, I apologize. Jacqueline Reyes, and Charles Brown. Yes, ma'am.
Good morning. My name is Shanita Vanish. I am the Vice President of Community Services Foundation. I want to thank you for this opportunity to speak before you today. I am here supported by a few of our community partners to ask you to help us secure Superintendent Arlotto's support and signature on the Exhibit 9 form required to implement the Maryland State Department of Education 21st Century Community Learning Center grant. We are a nonprofit organization that provides after-school and summer club activities in low-income Section 8 apartment communities. We are in our 2nd year of implementing the grant that provides academic support to youth and career support to their parents living in the Glenview Gardens apartments at 7987 North Park Court in Glen Burnie 21061. MSDE requires a signed Exhibit 9 form for the feeder schools and superintendent after a grant is awarded, which states that all parties are committed to supporting youth academic gains. We secured Glen Burnie's elementary schools principal support and signature, but Superintendent Arlotto's Senior Manager of Business and Community Partnership, Mr. Charles Yoakum, has refused to partner with us to provide this support to the youth. The documents that we provided to you today details our outreach to Dr. Arlotto's office, the support of parents, and the Glen Burnie Elementary School principal. It details our adherence to the directives from the superintendent's office requested from Mr. Yoakum and the grant specialist, and our answers to their questions to establish this partnership and secure the executed Exhibit 9. Although MSDE waived the requirements for this past year, they are requiring that we obtain this form to continue to provide the funding for the remaining years of the grant, and have given us a deadline of tomorrow. Equally disturbing is that we have not been given a reason for the lack of partnership. What is now at great jeopardy is the loss of funding to provide these youth with effective academic support. Based on year 1 of our program, we have the baseline data and results that show the progress that the youth have made through the first year of service. Our ability to improve and increase the aptitudes of the youth we serve, inclusive of their performance on standardized tests, is undergirded by MSDE's investment. Loss of this funding also removes the academic and career support for their parents, and it jeopardizes MSDE's ability to secure their goals for the year and funding for the entire state. Please help us secure Dr. Arlotto's support and signature today. The form is due tomorrow. Your decision to support the implementation of this grant is critical. I urge you to make this investment in the lives of the residents that live here in Anne Arundel County and help us to help them today. Again, thank you for your support.
Good morning, Board. Good morning, Superintendent. I'm Charles Brown, Executive Director at Healthy Families, with the responsibility of managing out-of-school time programs in Maryland and the District of Columbia. Thank you for the opportunity to place on the record our support for the Community Service Foundation appeal for continued 21st Century Community Learning Center funds at Glenview Gardens Learning Center. I'm here today because Children at the center are at risk of losing academic enrichment services approved through a competitive process by the Maryland State Department of Education. The services are designated for students who attend high poverty and low performing schools. Community Service Foundation, also referred to as CSF, has successfully provided reading, math, and other core academic services in a unique science, technology, engineering, arts, and math format at Glenview Gardens Learning Center with Healthy Families. Data proves that CSF services increased core academic grades at a higher rate than projected by the contract with MSDE and ahead of our goals stated. For example, during the past school term, 81.5% of students increased their math grades at a higher rate than the goal set by MSDE. The supporting services such as digital literacy, health and wellness, and character development and in-service learning also exceeded projections. Students at the learning centers also responded positively to all of the Maryland report cards indicators such as academics, attendance, high school graduation, and other factors related to positive feelings about school, career, community, and caring for others. Healthy Families has been in a partnership agreement with CSF for more than 12 years. Through our work together and my experience managing programs funded by the Department of Education across the country, the White House, and state superintendents, I'm keenly aware of the challenges that students and communities face due to the absence of quality supervised academic services. I know firsthand that access to quality enrichment activities is highly dependent on family income. Indeed, low-income students trail substantially behind more affluent peers in terms of academic enrichment due to the lack of quality after-school services. The absence of the 21st century funds reduce the positive effects of those gained during last year's school term. CSF services support the prevention of adverse outcomes and reduce risks such as crime and behavioral problems. On behalf of our organization and the many students and families we support, my statement is a compassionate request for continued funding at the Glenview Gardens Learning Center. You have my absolute commitment to exceed all goals and expectations. Thank you again for the opportunity to appear before you today. I also have a letter of support for CSF that I would like to provide.
Great. Thank you.
All right, my name is Jacqueline Reyes from So What Else. We partner up with Community Service Foundations after school, and we've been doing it for more than 7 years and so on. And one of the programs that we've partnered up with them after school would be integrative wellness, and we also integrate healthy living through that. Throughout this course, students are exposed to topics such as healthy foods, sustainable diets, seasonal and local produce, health risks posed by processed foods and sugars, yoga, and we also do meditation, stress management, and the importance of staying active with them. Each class operates with the theme of the day, which is reflected in the choice of games and activities. Each of the students are introduced to the value of physical activity for health, enjoyment, challenge, self-expression, social interaction. Service learning is also integrated into this program by researching and discussingly opening the topics of food insecurity, food deserts, hunger, and homelessness. Students participate in cooking a healthy meal, a snack, to donate to a nearby homeless shelter or to the community members in need. As an organization that has partnered up with Community Service Foundations, we believe that we have set an example to the students and to the community to be able to continue to make an impact in the choices that they make each and every single day when it comes to healthy and eating and staying active. It takes one person to make an impact, and we believe we can make it not just for one student, but for all the students that attend during the after-school program at the center. And also speaking from experience, I know that each of the kids come in after school with a feeling of wanting to be there, and they're in a safe environment and want to be able to also say, I make this a decision every day. And we've heard from students before that they say they've been able to make changes at home and been able to also make an impact in their own communities.
Thank you very much. Ms. Antoine.
Thank you, President Gilliland. I first want to thank all three of you for your choice to enrich education for our students. I had several questions because it just didn't, something's not adding up. It is my understanding that you are providing these enrichment courses, these programs to our students. What schools are you supporting, please?
Glen Burnie Elementary School.
Glen Burnie Elementary, and about how many students come to your program, please?
We're really about 30.
So when you got the response from the principals supporting it, it then came to the central office, is what you're sharing?
No. So initially what happened when we wrote the proposal, we wrote a letter of support to the school, asked them to review it and, support it and put it on their letterhead and show their support. They did that. Then when we were awarded the grant and went through the validation process, we received another letter of support from the school. And then we went through year one of funding. And then they asked us, they being Maryland State Department of Education, to present the Exhibit 9. So that's when we went back and got the signature from the principal at Glen Burnie and then took it up to the superintendent's office. We've heard different things like, well, we should have been consulted on the front side of writing the proposal. But that's not a requirement from Maryland State Department. But had we known that, we could have done that too,
And you only heard from the office that you're requesting this from, and not specifically the director of that office?
No, we have not been able to get in touch with Dr. Arlotto. So I know that he was out last week. I know we have done numerous calls to the office, so much so until the Office of Superintendent has called Maryland State Department of Education and asked them to ask us to stop calling. And so we waited, thinking that, okay, because they asked us questions, we've given the answers, like maybe they were, meeting and trying to make a decision.
Yes, ma'am. I'm not accusing your actions and certainly not any of the staff. I just know sometimes sitting in the seat, I may not see it ever to sign it, and wanted to better understand whose hands it's been in so we understand where your package is.
Yes,
we
it's
also
been in Mr. Charles Yoakum hands, so we have not spoken to Dr. Arlotto. I want to be clear about that, which is why we came today.
But you've spoken to Mr. Yoakum?
Yes, that is
correct.
correct.
Okay, that's what I'm getting at. The next question I would have then, you're saying that you will not be granted your second year of funding because of Mr. Yoakum's, according to you, Mr. Yoakum's choice not to endorse?
Well, because we do not have Dr. Arlotto's signature on this form. Yes.
Oh, so you've been waiting on it to just get to the superintendent for signature?
But Mr. Yoakum says that there is no partnership, but we're trying to establish a partnership.
Understood.
Yes.
So at this point, I then turn to Dr. Arlotto to better understand. We have community partnerships and enrichment programs, and a lot of times the principal has the autonomy to determine in his or her community what partnerships there are. In this case, are you aware of what's going on? And can you help us better understand what's happening on the systems end?
Yes, ma'am. I'm glad to share. I will say I find it unfortunate that this group is here based on all that's gone on. I am very well aware. I have read through the proposal. After it was submitted to MSDE, MSDE's been involved, and our attorneys are involved. This group, I will not be signing this agreement. This group misrepresented Anne Arundel County Public Schools in their submission to MSDE. And so I cannot partner with a group that doesn't speak with us and work with us on an honest level. And so I have not met with them. I have read through it. We have investigated, and we've been in touch with MSDE and the coordinators at MSDE, Mary Gable in particular, who has read through this and agreed that things were not done the way they should have been done. I will tell you, I take offense to anybody that suggests that we don't work incredibly hard, this team, to provide partnerships with community folks that want to go out and do good work. I have no doubt they may be doing wonderful work. I have no doubt. But to suggest that we would not partner with a group for any other reason other than they did not represent us correctly in their bid with MSDE. And so therefore, we will not be signing this agreement.
So then my question, because the principal is in that line of authority as well, what was the principal's endorsement based on what you know? How did that come about?
The principal's endorsement was not accurate. And in the end, it has to go from, it can't be a principal alone, it has to come through us
Because
to
it's a
develop these
state
partnerships.
grant, right?
Because it's a state grant, and as she's saying correctly, it absolutely has to have a superintendent's signature on it. And so we have done our due diligence, we have done an investigation, we've been in touch with MSDE, and this group will be from our attorneys.
So one more question, because I see it's getting hairier than what we knew today in this moment. One more question, though. Is this group still allowed to perform the service for our students with this case being in place?
I can't sit here and tell you today exactly what service they're delivering. There is no Glen Burnie Elementary School. It's Glen Burnie Park Elementary School. There was also a bid when they wrote to MSDE, it mentions Marley Middle School and Marley Elementary School. And I don't know if those schools are involved or not. The bid also talks about the work of their partnership with us, and they mention Prince George's County. We're not Prince George's County. We're Anne Arundel County. And so there were many things that were not, and I'm going to use your words, they weren't adding up. And so we are going to not partner with this group at this time.
Understood.
May I just at least address that?
It's up to you.
No, it's not, but it's about credibility. And some of what he said wasn't true.
I will have you escorted out of here if need be. This is not an opportunity for you to debate the superintendent's comments or another board member. Now, if a board member does want to ask you a question, I certainly will allow that.
Okay.
But you've had your 3 minutes.
Okay.
Ms. Antoine.
Ma'am, and because of the information and out of respect to what's going on, if you don't mind us taking it off, taking it outside of the public forum so that we can better understand what's happening within and outside of the system.
Right. Yes.
Thank you.
And Ms. Antoine, I would much have preferred that. Much have preferred. This is, I do not relish this conversation in public at all. But to accuse this team of not wanting to partnership with groups that want to go out and work with our children, we know that we can't do this good work alone, that we need quality community partners. I just can't let that stand.
I also want our students to have, and I believe the board does too, our students to have opportunities to enrichment. And it sounds like based on what you just shared, those opportunities are there. So please allow us to work together to resolve whatever may be going on.
So what does that mean? Do we wait for you to contact us?
In terms of this public testimony, I have no more questions and would encourage that you work with our system so that we can get this resolved.
Okay. Thank you for your time.
Mrs. Shawhan.
Thank you all for your testimony. I just want to, I mean, this is the first I've heard about this, so I just want to make that clear. I think that's probably the first time any of us have heard this, about this situation, about anything involved with a grant being potentially cut off. All of our email addresses, all of our contact information is on the website, aacps.org/board.
Okay.
And I just wish I had known about this in advance of today. So I'm a little sad about that.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone, for coming here today.
Okay, we have documents.
Please, yeah, they can have those. Item 4.0, we'll now move to departmental reports. Item 4.01 is the Safety and Security Report, and we'll turn to Ms. Jackson.
Good morning, President Gilliland, Vice President Corkadell, members of the Board of Education, and Dr. Arlotto. For the record, I am Monique Jackson, Deputy Superintendent for Student and School Support. I am providing a monthly update on security as requested to highlight the work being done in this department. The Security Department continues to provide professional development throughout the county. Over the past month, these have included staff professional development presentations and practical exercises at Hilltop Elementary School, Brooklyn Park Middle School, and security awareness for administrative assistants. They also presented to new substitute teachers during their onboarding sessions. Additionally, we were honored to have Michelle Gay present to all leveled principals. Finally, at its September meeting, the Security Council focused on mental health in schools with a presentation by our Student Services team. Last month, the question was posed, asking for the best way for parents to assist with school security. And when I consulted with our team and with other school principals, the answer was overwhelmingly to help us by following established protocols and procedures, and when in doubt, ask questions. Safety and security is a priority, but may not always be convenient. Thank you for the opportunity to update you, and at this time, I'm available for any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson. First, we'll turn to Ms. Antwine and then Mrs. Schauheim.
Ms. Jackson, how are you today?
Good,
thank you for the update and the briefing. My question concerns the data that was requested concerning the arrest. Have we received that data from the police department yet?
No, ma'am, and as soon as we receive it, I will forward it to the board.
Yes, ma'am. So, with that being the case, and I've done some of my own homework before I came here as well, it may be something outside of us that's causing the delay. Mm-hmm. So I would like to make a motion at this time, please. So I motion that the Board of Education invites the Anne Arundel County Police Chief and any associated staff to address their relationship with our schools, to include arrests and citations in our schools.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, Mrs. Howell, would you please call the roll on Ms. Antwine's motion?
Beginning with Ms. Hummer.
Nay.
Ms. Alvey.
Nay.
Ms. Corkadell.
I would prefer it to be under different circumstances, so I'm going to be a nay for this specific purpose. I think there's an opportunity there for that collaboration, but not for this specific purpose. I don't know that we have that authority over him to be able to dictate that.
Ms. Schauheim.
Aye, because I think would be great to have them here and to address us if they're willing to come.
Ms. Ellis.
I think I'm going to concur with Ms. Corkadell in her reasoning, and this is information that I certainly want to build the communication between the school system and the county and certainly the police department, but I'm not sure that this is the correct format, so I'll say nay.
Ms. Antwine.
So since they had discussion that they did not want to have, I will share with you that before I made this motion, I spoke with the chief of police, and he's in concurrence with coming and speaking before the board. So of course it's an aye for me. I think it's very important that if we have partnerships and we have controversies such as this, that it be addressed and publicly in this forum so that we can resolve, introduce solutions, and move forward. I think it's unfair to have our staff continuously requesting information that they're not getting. I also think it's important to our students, our parents, our community, that we have thorough information and introduce solutions when problems occur. So that's a big aye.
Mr. Leib. Nay. Mr. Gilliland.
Nay.
It's 2 in the negative.
2 in the affirmative.
2 in the affirmative, 6 in the negative. Motion fails.
And I would just say this, I think too, if, whether through Dr. Arlato or certainly me, as long as I'm sitting here in this chair, I'm always happy to invite the police chief, to a meeting, and we can perhaps do it under a broader issue, potentially with SROs and their role. And we did that about a year ago. And it wasn't the police chief, but we did have representatives from the police department. But I think if we invited him, he would come.
Oh, no, he's already said yes.
So we didn't discuss it, so no need of us discussing it now. I will say that the motion did say that he comes and speaks about our partnership and his roles and responsibilities in our schools. It was not specifically on the arrest. However, you all have voted it down.
Ms. Antwine, any other comments? Your light was still... You're good? Okay. Okay, Mrs. Schalheim and then Ms. Salvi.
I just wanted to thank you for your continued commitment to keep us up to date on these things every month, and it's very helpful for me, and I know it's been a tough week, so yeah, thank you for being here and for continuing to keep us in the loop. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
For the purpose of giving respect to the superintendent's role, and just so everyone knows that the superintendent is meeting with the police chief, and there are conversations taking place behind the scenes. And when that information is ready to be communicated in whatever way that he finds rightful, it will happen, as far as I know.
Thank you, Ms. Allen.
I call a point of order.
Yes, Ms. Antwine.
We said we were not going to discuss it. We voted on it. We're on to the next subject.
Okay, I see no further lights on it, so I think we're good. Completely understood. Any further comments on school safety and security? Seeing none. Any public comment on safety and security? Seeing none. We'll move to item 4.02, bullying prevention report. Mrs. Jackson, welcome back.
Thank you. Good morning again, President Gillen, Vice President Corkadell, members of the Board of Education, and Dr. Arlato. Again, for the record, I'm Monique Jackson, Deputy Superintendent for Student and School Support, and I'm providing a monthly update on bullying and harassment as requested to highlight the work being done in this area. Our schools have engaged in activities to prevent bullying and promote inclusion and acceptance. These ideas are embedded throughout the instructional day and are not just limited to the counseling curriculum. For example, read-alouds during the literacy block in elementary school offer an excellent opportunity. Our very own Superintendent George Arlato used this very opportunity just earlier this week when he read 0 to a class at Shadyside Elementary. Many of our elementary principals have reported that community building circles have made a true difference in the culture of their schools. As we work to mitigate bullying at all levels, but especially at the middle school level, we will continue to focus on advisory and other small group opportunities. We will continue to work at the elementary level through explicit instruction and at the high school level through promoting student voice and community building activities. The Middle School Bullying Prevention Work Group continues to examine ways to enhance middle school structures and supports which effectively address issues related to bullying and perceptions of bullying. In 2 weeks, we will recognize Project Unity, Unity Day, to promote kindness, acceptance, and inclusion. Schools are planning activities that fit their needs and promote anti-bullying. Thank you to Ms. Pellegrin for her efforts to assist in helping the group capture middle school student voice. Thank you for the opportunity to update you, and at this time, I am available for any questions.
Thank you again. We'll start with Ms. Antwine and then Mrs. Ellis.
So this is another one of Antwine's motions. Unity Day is October 23rd, right? That is also a board meeting. So I motion that the board considers wearing orange on October 23rd.
Board comments on Mrs. Summer.
I don't think we need a motion for that. I think we can just say everybody's wearing orange, and we encourage everybody in the audience and everybody watching at home, wear orange on October 23rd. No vote needed. Are folks with me on that? Okay.
I think we vote.
Ms. Antwine, I don't have orange in my wardrobe, so
We have some UVA wear you can have.
UVA or Virginia Tech, maybe, right? Mrs. Ellis.
Thank you. I had an opportunity to see some of those community circles at work early in the school year when I did some school visits. It's really a great thing to see in action. So how do we continue that throughout the year? I know you can't just teach that, set the tone, and move on and expect it to stick. So how are these kids going to, are they going to continue to revisit that throughout the year?
Absolutely. I love that question, Ms. Ellis, because it gives me an opportunity to highlight that important work. That community building circles are not just a one and done at the beginning of the year, but they happen each week. Sometimes it depends on the structure of the school, and sometimes multiple times. When an incident occurs at a school that perhaps produces harm to the community, the school community in some way, perhaps it's the death of a student or the death of a teacher, or perhaps it's a major discipline incident. I have seen community circles recently work beautifully. And so it's also a wonderful thing to see the principals participate in them, to model. A real shout out to Ms. Hopkins, Principal Hopkins, because she has done a phenomenal job with the use of community building circles at Southern High School, as well as many of our schools. So I'm really excited about that work. I think I told the board maybe last year or in one of my earlier reports that we even see students using community circles outside of the school day. I received 2 cute reports, one from a parent who said that she spent a lot of money on a birthday party for her daughter, and all they wanted to do was a community building circle instead of the birthday party. I also received an email, yes, and I received information from a principal that said her students at an elementary school, there was an issue at the bus stop, and the students said, okay, let's circle up. And so, that's what we hope, that it's not just going to be within the 6.5 hours a day, but we hope that they take them beyond the school day and into adulthood. Because wouldn't it be great if our adults circled up instead of acting out? So, thank you.
Those are beautiful stories. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Ellis. Any further board questions or comments on bullying prevention? Any public comment? Seeing none on both. Thank you again. Item 4.03 is diversity and inclusion, and we'll turn to Dr. Gillens. Good morning. And you're walking very well. So.
Oh my goodness! Thank you. Good morning, President Gilliland and Vice President Corkerdale, Dr. Arlotto, and members of the board. For the record, I am Maisha Gillens, Executive Director of Equity and Accelerated Student Achievement. I am providing the monthly update on diversity and inclusion. The Office of Equity and Accelerated Student Achievement continues to be intentional in our efforts in assisting schools in eliminating the gaps in achievement. With this goal in mind, I am pleased to give you an update on the professional development that took place on October 8th during the 2-hour early dismissal. In response to the end-of-the-year survey, my office developed a self-care component of the professional development module. Research shows that we must take care of ourselves before we can take care of others. As when you're on an airplane, the flight attendant says, put on your oxygen mask first before you put it on your companion. We are committed to ensuring the well-being of our staff so they can be well for their students. In addition to self-care, the module also included relationship-building activities. Building relationships is one of the foundations of our strategic plan. Administrators across the county led their staffs in a discussion around why equity matters in Anne Arundel County Public Schools. This was supported by the analysis of our district park assessment, along with each individual school's data disaggregated by student groups. The sessions ended with schools being asked to look through the lens of equity during their collaborative planning, data dialogue, leadership team meetings, anything that impacts students. And they were to consider the following questions. What are you doing to ensure that each student can, will, and shall learn? What are you doing to ensure students are not being deprived of educational opportunities? How are you being intentional in allocating resources, instruction, and opportunities according to student need? And how are you intentional in identifying and eradicating discriminatory practices, prejudices, and beliefs? I would also like to take this opportunity to give you an update on Diversity Week, which was led by the Workforce Diversity Committee Chair, Mrs. Shanika McKenzie. During Anne Arundel County Public Schools Diversity Week, employees had the opportunity to participate in various activities that focus on the importance of diversity and inclusion while connecting with colleagues from various departments. Some of the activities included the Dimensions of Identity activity, where participants explored multiple dimensions of their identities and the importance of self-awareness as a starting point in discussing diversity and inclusion. The Sharing Our Stories provided central office staff a unique opportunity to hear the personal journey of an AACPS teacher who has become an outspoken advocate for the Americans with Disabilities Act. In conclusion, I am pleased to give you an update on Monday's Joint Initiative Work Group Committee. The committee had an opportunity to read through the responses provided at the September 23rd meeting at Arundel High School. The responses were grouped by theme, and the participants separated themselves by subcommittees. To date, the subcommittees are focusing on structural racism, community support, curriculum, discipline, family life, income, and support. The subcommittees will meet before the next whole group meeting. The subcommittees will engage the community in this problem-solving process. I am looking forward to giving you regular updates on our progress towards eliminating opportunity gaps, which has a direct impact on student achievement. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Gillens. Ms. Antwine and then Mrs. Schalheim.
Thank you. Dr. Gillens, how are you? Thank you for the presentation, and I know that the subcommittee idea is excellent, especially with you doing so much for yourself. I would just like to know, rather than for yourself, by yourself, a lot of times, you know, even though you have a great team, a lot you're responsible for them too. But who's on the subcommittees, please? Is that staff from your department or throughout the system?
Good question. These are the subcommittees were created across systems in the county. So we have representatives from the library. We have representatives from the county exec's office, definitely from Anne Arundel Public Schools, Anne Arundel Community College. Help me out, Mrs. Jackson. I don't have the list in front of me, but it's about 35 individuals that consist of the work group.
Wonderful.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Ms. Antwine. Mrs. Schalheim.
So, hi, how are you?
I'm well,
Good
thank
morning.
you.
Thank you for your presentation. So after the initiative for the joint focus on student achievement, that committee did meet afterwards or has met?
Yes. So the large group meeting happened at Arundel High School, the smaller work group, and at the end of the presentation on Monday, September 23rd, Mrs. Jackson came out and closed out. And I believe she had the subcommittee members to stand up so the community could see who were the representatives.
That's right, I do remember that.
That group who stood up met on Monday here in the boardroom.
And so they've only really met the one time.
Correct. And we have established meetings throughout the year.
Okay, great. Some other questions for you. Firstly, this is not a question, but a comment. I love the fact that you included self-care. It's super important. When you were talking about data and looking at park scores and then looking at school data and then student groups, how did you disaggregate it? Which student groups are you looking at?
Certainly. So the way our park data is disaggregated, how it's reported out, student groups, so racial student groups are certainly included in the way we disaggregate data at the district level. So we're talking African American, white, Hispanic, and again, I wish I had it in front of me, so I feel like I'm going to miss a student group. Students who are eligible from reduced meals, students who are eligible who receive special education services. We have limited English proficiency. We have by gender, by boy, by girl.
Farms.
Students who are eligible for free and reduced meals.
Right. And mixed race.
Oh, and
mixed race. Yes.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
And then
so by the school level, I'm sorry, can I just,
yes,
I want to layer it down. So we're in the aggregate, right? At the district level by student group. And so what schools were then asked to do was now dig deeper in their individual school data. So the analysis is, does my school data mirror what's happening in the aggregate across the district? And I had the privilege to attend a school yesterday. So not only did they look at their academic data, they looked at their discipline data to see which student groups, whether it be disproportionality is in play, why are certain students may have office referrals for what reason. So they really had an opportunity to dig deeper to see, is there an alignment or is my school contributing to the aggregate? Right, so there was that dialogue and going big and then going down small per school. Did I answer that?
That's wonderful. Okay. Yes. Other than park, because park's just one data point, right?
Certainly.
Are we looking at all of these things with regard to local assessments?
Yes.
You know, I think you know what road I'm traveling down.
So that's why I wanted to use the example as discipline, because that was out of the scope of the aggregate in park. So again, the school that I attended, that I participated in their professional development, they had data, your benchmark data, your quarterly assessments.
Yes.
Right. So these are district generated, normed, you know, to be able to compare against how other students are doing in other schools. So yes, that data was also analyzed at different schools. So elementary schools, they probably had F&P data.
Right.
I did not attend an elementary school, so I can't, you know, speak
because
to
that's what we use as a quarterly assessment for at the district level.
We use different assessments at the different level. We call them quarterly assessments.
Right.
In addition to that, we have F&P. It's not necessarily quarterly.
Okay. Got it.
But that's at the elementary level.
And then also, do you look at report card grades too? Because sometimes, like myself, I don't test well. I never have. Very high test anxiety. But grades on, classroom grades were always
and many
pretty good
schools
for me,
do
so.
that. They look at grade distribution. Is there a correlation with the grade versus an assessment? So for instance, if I am a student who received an A, let's say in a class, but my assessments were in the 60 percentile. So there's a disconnect, right? Because a grade should reflect what a student is able to do. And so we do have those conversations regarding grade distribution. How are we grading our students? Does it accurately reflect what students are know and are able to do? So yes.
Fantastic. And yes, please.
Over the years, we've done a great deal of professional development in reference to formative assessment. And so our structures that we set up through collaborative planning at the elementary, middle, and high school levels afford teachers the opportunity to collect weekly data on students so that they can also measure that. And that, when we use the word formative assessment, when I was in school, and I'm pretty young, but when I was in school, that was frequently, a little Scantron test, and then it was always a test. But sometimes it's in the format of an exit ticket. Sometimes they have an all-classroom response. So teachers collect ongoing data, I would say several times a week, and then they bring that data as well.
Perfect. And is all of this being collected on a consistent level between all the elementary schools and then between all the middle and high schools?
So when you say consistent level, help me better understand the question.
So if we were going to look at this from, if an outsider was looking at trying to judge, different schools, right, and say all this information was out there, we would want to know, the parent would want to know, was each school consistent in their data collection and reporting as the other elementary schools, so I can say, oh, I like that one, or I'm not saying that
That's a
we're
great
doing
question.
That, but,
So
yes.
we're not really we're very careful about utilizing that phrase "judging schools" because we are trying to elevate all of our students, and so I think sometimes that becomes a negative connotation, and so we have a consistent process by dates. For example, we are going to give this assessment during this time, and it's going to be reported in this format. And so that happens at the district level, especially with the quarterly assessments, things of that nature. Again, I'll go back to the formative assessments. We have a very rich curriculum. And many of the formative assessments are embedded in the curriculum. And so when we ask teachers to follow the curriculum and not go outside of their own, that's one of the reasons why we do that, because we want to make sure that we are monitoring and measuring what is expected and what is taught. So that's a really, really good question, because those are the things that are in place. And teachers can use that to formative assessment is not necessarily for reporting. It's for flexible grouping, because I may be proficient in one mathematical standard, but not in another mathematical standard. And therefore, for this activity, I may have these 3 groups, but those groups are fluid. And so we continue to offer professional development in that manner.
So then apples are apples across the board.
Absolutely.
Okay. Got it. No, I really love this. And I'm sure you see, unfortunately, differences between some groups versus others in performance on these various things. Is that something that we, and this is all on the heels of the MABE conference, y'all, so apologize for this, but so I was sitting in the Montgomery County one. I'm sure you know all about their iDashboard thing and showing all this stuff and being out there with their data. So do we have any plans, or are we putting that out there too in a similar way?
Oh, we've done that ever since I've been a principal or an assistant principal. We've had a robust data collection system that is very user-friendly. And we also have members of our IDD team that also meet with school teams to help disaggregate that as well. So our IDD department is coming and they're going to school teams, and they're assigned to different clusters to help them better understand what's going on at their school and how it relates to other schools in their cluster. So it's color-coded for those of us who need that. I'm one of those people. And so we're able to see, we can manipulate it so that we can see progress. We can also compare apples to apples, but apples to oranges. How did our 7th grade team do last year as compared to this year? You also raised a very good point about utilizing those data platforms. I was able to do a walkthrough and participate with the, I believe, 3rd grade team collaborative planning at Manor View Elementary School. And so I actually saw them utilizing their results to plan for upcoming instruction and their PYP ongoing assessment.
Is there the strategic plan that they can do progress? And so for the strategic plan, so I would say that Mrs. Jackson is talking about internal use of our data system.
Yes.
But for external, on the strategic plan site where it says progress, what progress are we making? That's for the public to also be able to view progress that we're making in certain areas. Is that what, okay.
Yeah, that's where that's the road I'm traveling down. And so can that public view, is it by school, and then within the school by these groups, African American, white?
You can sort it by student group.
That's awesome. Yeah.
And I would say, and that's the great part about attending conferences. You see some really great best practices.
Yeah.
And I've been to several conferences, and I've been to several MABE sessions as well. And I will say that what we have is the data collection system we have is a great fit for Anne Arundel County Public Schools because it has become very user-friendly, and it speaks to different, to our data system speaks to the grade book, and it also is in alignment with what parents see. And so that's the beauty of our data system, is that it's very, and I don't like this word because I think we overuse it, but I'll say it, transparent. And so that's the
I don't think we can overuse that word. This is fabulous. Thank you for that. And then I also, as an aside, but I think it ties in, that new app, the Power School app, I think is also amazing and can help feed the parents to then be able to close gaps even further.
You can actually set it to alert you too.
And yeah,
yes,
no,
you
I like
weekly, daily.
It's wonderful.
I know. It goes off a lot.
Mother of two.
I like
yes.
this.
Speaking as mothers, yes.
So, you know,
and having a teenager, yes.
Yes.
It's great.
Yeah.
Yes,
yeah,
exactly. It's great.
So, you know, I can't let this this conversation end without saying snaps to those who put that out there. So thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Mrs. Jackson, I love hearing a member of my same graduating class say you're young. So
thank you, sir. That was for you.
And you notice when she said that, she looked at me.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, sir.
Mrs. Ellis.
Thank you. Sorry, I had to get back on focus. The committee for the addressing the opportunity gap. I know we have a couple of task forces in operation at once. Considering there might be some expectations, the committee is not meeting in open meetings for the public to observe. Is that?
Oh, correct. Yes, that's correct. And then they're also doing committee work outside of that
work.
week, right?
Right, but the committee when it meets as a whole, those are not open meetings.
No,
okay,
the first one was, and the last one will be.
Okay,
yes.
But you mentioned working with the community. So, do we have information on our website about who's on the committee, what the subcommittees are, and therefore, if someone feels like they have something to contribute, they can contact someone?
Yes, ma'am. We are. That's currently, and thank you so much to Dr. McMahon and Ms. Hoyle for putting that together. We have much of that. I don't know if it's gone live just yet. Is it live? Okay, yes. Like I said, it's live. But we've been working on it, and so that our community can be well aware. Also, Dr. Gillens and her team have created an email distribution list of everyone who attended, and so that they are kept up to date. On Dr. McMahon, on the website Dr. McMahon and Ms. Hoyle created, there's some data information, there's video, there's also PowerPoint from the first evening on September 23rd, as well as articles from around the country. Because as you know, we're not the only people endeavoring in this work. And so people can read, they can respond. This is very much a community partnership, but we have to make sure that we are able to. We met for the first time, Monday, and we ran out of time. There's so much to get accomplished, and so we want to make sure that we make the best, most efficient use of our time while we're there together.
Okay, so for anyone who has something to contribute, there's contact information for them to reach out?
Yes, ma'am. Dr. Gillens' team will be emailing that listserv, but also we will put the contact information on the website for each of the each of the subcommittees. So,
Great.
for example, if I feel like I have something to contribute to the discipline subcommittee,
Right.
once the volunteer or the person who will be volunteered to be the leader of the discipline committee or the curriculum committee or the community committee, those people, their contact information will be there. The reason why it's not there just yet is we have a couple of people who haven't stepped up in those committees, and
Yeah.
we're going to encourage them.
Right. And that listserv will get regular updates, I guess, is
Yes,
what you're
ma'am.
saying? And so is there an opportunity for people to ask to be added to the mailing list?
Absolutely, and we can, I'm talking for Dr. McMahon, but we could definitely make that available.
Great. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Any further board questions or comments on diversity and inclusion? Seeing none, any public comment? Seeing none, thank you both. We'll now turn to item 4.04, which is the transportation report, and Mr. Shaknovich.
Good morning. For the record, Alex Shaknovich, Chief Operating Officer, to present item 4.04, the transportation report. I was asked to make a few brief comments and observations regarding school bus GPS traffic tracking systems at the last meeting, so that is my intent this morning. Parents and students would naturally like to know where their school bus is, maybe be able to see it on a map, know if it may be running late, get an estimated time arrival, get notifications of any bus changes, etc. So naturally that's an inclination of any parent or guardian and student as well. But all of that is obviously far easier said than done, in spite of the fancy marketing materials and the many claims that are being bantered about. My research concluded that there are well in excess of 2+ dozen firms competing in this market space, and they're really bifurcated almost into 3 different segments of the market. Several focus on school bus fleets from an owner's perspective, for example, us being an owner. And they may track bus locations, bus routes, fuel optimization, safety, vehicle safety, and maintenance items, to name a few, some of which do or don't employ GPS technologies. Several focus on school bus fleet tracking from that parent or guardian or student perspective, as I referenced earlier, using GPS technologies and computers, tablets, mobile apps, etc. It's to sort of aid that end user. And finally, several focus on student accountability. And essentially, they're looking to be able to geolocate students individually. They provide unique RIF-enabled technology, chip technology in cards or other swipeable or proximal elements. So, for example, when you're entering and exiting a bus, entering or exiting a building, etc., again, it's a student accountability, and some of that is using GPS or computer solutions. School bus tracking platforms obviously can only work if the physical bus itself is outfitted with a powered antenna. Not only that antenna device, but it has to have the computerized module on it that's be able to receive that data, transmit that data, etc. We here in Anne Arundel County Public Schools do have about 5 dozen buses that we own and operate routinely. They are, in fact, outfitted with the fleet management version of that system. It's a data logger system, and it does have GPS capacity on it as well, that again integrates with our fleet maintenance, safety, and management program. It is not, however, set up or structured to act as a parent guardian student interface, so that's not the intended function or functionality of that system that is presently installed. We do have the Seon VMAX Compass school bus routing platform. That routing platform does not have a GPS enabled mobile solution at present. It's a web-based system that's used again for folks like us, fleet managers. It can be expanded to allow for administrative bus tracking, but again, it doesn't have a mobile app or an attendance tracking function that would be of value to parents or students at the moment. It's important to recall, as I may have stated before, that most, in fact, almost none of our 600+ contracted buses that we utilize each and every day to transport in excess of 97% of our 63,000 bus eligible students have GPS devices installed on them, and those owner operators may likely not be inclined to do so, to bear that cost, or to share their proprietary information with Anne Arundel County Public Schools or the public at large. The cost structure of these systems typically works as such. The school district or the owner operator has to procure the antenna and the computer module that's physically going to be installed and powered and hooked into the battery and power system of a bus. The school district or the owner-operator then typically pay a software licensing and upgrade fee or a monthly subscription fee. The structures vary by the different vendors based on either the number of buses or the number of parents that potentially utilize the service. In most instances, the end user, that being a parent or guardian, however, is left with downloading a link or an app or accessing a link or an app. Typically, that is at no cost to that parent or guardian. Remember what I said about the overly optimistic marketing materials and claims that are oft bantered about, sometimes even in these chambers. In reality, this is hard, and it requires a tremendous amount of system and technology integration to ensure that such projects even have a remote chance of going well. They are not plug-and-play systems at all, not even close. They require a tremendous amount of, again, systems integration at multiple levels. You would be asking here in our district to ask our Transportation and Technology Division to take on that integration effort while simultaneously continuing to stand up and optimize our computerized routing system, as well as implement any of the recommendations that likely would be forthcoming from our transportation consultants. I, for one, am always a little leery and suspect about having systems that have too many moving parts or too many unquantifiable degrees of complexities all occurring at one time. I'll leave you with a quote from one of my respected colleagues here in a Maryland jurisdiction that I reached out to. And I will, for obvious reasons, leave out all names, systems, and locations blank. But the quote goes essentially as such: I have blank system and app from blank, and I regret it. Lots of issues with GPS readings and when we switch or just buses. I have more complaints now than ever, more parent complaints now than ever, and many parents refuse to even download it because it does them no good. That is the summary of my remarks, and I will open it up to questions from the board.
Thank you. We have Ms. Antwine, then Ms. Schelheim, and then Ms. Ellis.
Mr. Technovics, I want to first of all thank you. I have received many emails and calls and otherwise from parents, and I appreciate that you and your team, and Dr. Arlotto, you as well, have been immediately responsive when I received those, so thank you for that. Outside of what you presented, I would like to request information on school bus safety. I have been in several places in the county, and I am noticing that the students, in order to get onto their buses, are crossing in front of traffic. It is my understanding that the students are to be picked up on the side of traffic from which they are, the bus, they do not have to cross traffic, basically. So I wanted to better understand why it may be that some students are being required, and I'm not talking one or two. I've seen a group of students crossing in front of the traffic to get onto their buses.
Sure. Well, obviously, the ideal circumstance is to allow for same-side service where you're picking up the youngsters on the door side of the bus. That's neither always practicable or feasible. If we were to pick up every youngster on the side of the road where the bus exists, in some respects, you're almost thinking about doubling the amount of miles that our buses would have to travel each and every day, because you're going to have to go up in each and every length of the road in one direction and then come back down that same road in the other direction. So in many cases, it's either impractical or not feasible, and certainly in some extents not affordable either. I mean, there is a law in the state of Maryland, unless you are on a bifurcated highway that has a structured median, when the buses deploy their school stop arms and safety devices, all traffic has to halt in either direction. Absent that, it's a violation, and you can get a ticket from law enforcement for that. So Again, we try to the extent possible to provide same-side service. It is clearly the ideal. It's clearly the preferred methodology. But, you know, given the structure of the county, given how many thousands of road miles we have and how many thousands of road miles our buses travel each and every day, to be able to configure all of our routes to ensure that no youngster, no matter how even small a road, would have to cross from one side of the street to the other side is essentially just impractical to try to figure out with, you know, 64,000 students that we're transporting, and how many buses we have and how many miles we have to travel and the time in which we have that to get all that accomplished.
Understood. I'm glad you shared that with me. So then I would request, Dr. Arlotto, that something goes out to these parents or to the community, maybe on our site or otherwise, because the students have to cross the street. We would like to think that everybody obeys the law, but we all don't. And it actually puts those students in direct jeopardy when, of course, we understand and know that, when they're having to cross in front of oncoming traffic. If we can just update a special reminder to people that this is the law and it should be obeyed, I think under our purview, we could put a message out that says when students are crossing the road or whatever, that all sides of traffic must be halted in accordance with state law.
I do know that we work with law enforcement. We actually meet with them ahead of the school year, and they have and it's just not here in Anne Arundel, it's actually a statewide effort, because the state and the federal government and the county all participate in it, but they basically have a saturation campaign that we and law enforcement together partner on to basically, as the school year is about to start, and you might see this, you know, there's a media saturation campaign, and then there's a physical presence where the police department deploy out to the streets to follow or monitor bus stops at the beginning of school, because folks have sort of been out of the routine from June, July, August, and here comes September now, and it's, oh my goodness, the buses are rolling again. We have to start thinking about this again. So we do have some information in our parent student handbooks that we send out that's specific to transportation. It's got points and tips. We also, in the back to school information that we ask schools to send out, in addition to the student handbook and what's online, that talks about some important safety reminders for parents as we're getting back into the swing. But we'll certainly be happy to really look at that again and see if there's another way to reinforce that. Yeah.
I'm off. Just a little friendly reminder that this is the law. Stop.
Right.
And especially with those students having to cross. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll do that. And anytime any of us can remind, again, from our perspective, from Public Works, from police, it's tremendous to be able to reinforce that in the public's mind. Yeah.
Just a point of information from my context, I still ride the bus home some days, and what you're talking about, I can understand why you would see that as an issue, but we are well aware as students and people in the community that when that red stop sign goes off of a bus, everybody stops. And I just took driving school as well, and that is one of the most emphasized points that we learned. So just to reassure you, it's being taken care of and everyone knows about it.
Mrs. Ellis.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I missed the part immediately preceding where you were quoting, I guess, someone from another district who had purchased tracking software. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
What was that from? What were you, that was just from another district?
I'm sorry.
Yes.
I missed, okay. And thank you for doing that research. Do you know how many districts, like at this point nationwide, are using that kind of
No, I don't.
tracking technology?
Nope. I've reached out to one district that's often been cited as the example, the exemplar, the leader in that area here
Okay.
within the state of Maryland.
Okay. And do you know how long they've had that?
I believe they're in their third year.
Okay. So, yeah, I'm, you know, my wheels were turning as I was listening, and I can imagine that there's some good experiences and not good experiences depending on what the expectations were versus what they actually purchased. So that's why I asked the question about how many districts actually nationwide are using this technology, because it would be great to continue the research and find the success stories and go from there. Thanks.
Mrs. Schallheim.
Thank you for your report. Really appreciate it. I know that contractors might not be inclined to go out of their comfort zone or to progress or move or change or to potentially, as the case might be, install GPS systems. But in our contracts, isn't it true that we can compel that if that was the will of the board or the school system?
So I'm going to jump in if I can, Alex, and you'll certainly correct me where I'm wrong. We certainly could write that into a contract, but I would have a difficult time with us doing that, because when we contract for work, let me use an example, for runs in the morning and then runs in the afternoon. And that bus company could have that bus out doing work for private schools or any other group they want to. And so we don't own by contract their time. Right? We own their we contract time in the morning. Again, I'm being very simplistic in terms of the morning and the afternoon, but the time in between, we might not be contracting for them, and they could be contracting elsewhere. And so we don't have that proprietary ability to say we'll have the ability to track your buses wherever they are when they're not on Anne Arundel County contracted time.
Okay, no, that makes total sense. Yeah, thank you for that. Again, in your research, I hope that this isn't, I'm not asking you to continually research every moment of your day, but as you're finding out new things from your counterparts in different places, if there comes an example of a large system with a non-owned fleet using a bus software successfully, boy, I'd love to know their story and how they made that work, because, we can learn and grow from that information potentially too.
Right. So I did in Maryland, because my contacts are here in Maryland. So I did put out an all call to all of the LEAs, and none of the jurisdictions in Maryland that outsourced their transportation, much like we do, none of those responded back and said that we utilize anything similar to this with their external bus fleets.
Oh, that's really good to know.
Not every jurisdiction responded back, but of all the ones that did, that use a contract model, none of those that responded back said that that they deployed this type of technology at this juncture.
All right, that's good to know. And I would just also encourage, for the 6 we do own, technology changes daily, and just to, I don't know if there's a way to keep your finger on the pulse of that, but surely someone's going to figure this out successfully at some point, and when they do, it would, I hope that's not me. It is me. Apologies.
Yeah, and I think the level of complexity, Ms. Schallheim, is, I already said that we've got for our own buses, we do actually have for all practical purposes, it's a black box system like an airline does, but we have that. It's a data logger system, and it actually is GPS enabled. So to the extent that we can find a solution that already, that firm already has done some of their own systems integration, my research basically showed that when you're taking a fourth party provider, and you're taking a fourth party provider and trying to integrate it with a different mapping software company that they don't talk to each other, and you're trying to talk to a fleet management tracking and data logger system, which is what we use, UPS uses, FedEx uses, et cetera. That integration piece, you're really asking things that were never intended to talk to each other, and you're trying to force fit that technological conversation. And in talking to folks in the business, that's where things typically go awry.
Got it.
There are bus routing and tracking companies out there. not ones that we have here, but there are ones out there that have a bolt-on module under their corporate banner that does this parent-guardian tracking. It's not the one that we own and have already invested in or standing up. But in that scenario, it would likely be easier because, again, corporately behind the scenes, their software engineers and app developers and all, are thinking harder about making those integrations work.
So it could so happen that during the course of our existing contract with our existing fleet management, they could build on to their system something that would meet this need potentially.
Naturally, and I think it's market-driven forces. I mean, I think, that's one of the wonderful things about capitalism, right?
Yes.
Identify a demand and somebody will work hard to fill it. So I think all of these firms are likely continuing to look at that economic environment and look at each other. So, I mean, market forces work wonderfully, right? So, I mean, if the demand builds and if others in the industry do it, then, past this prologue, more folks might continue to move into this market space, which will benefit everybody.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you so much.
Sure.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Schallheim. Any further board questions or comments as it relates to the transportation report? Seeing none, any public comment? Seeing none, Mr. Shaknovich, thank you. We'll now move to our consent calendar. We have two consent items today. Is there a motion to bundle items 5.01 and 5.02? Motion, second. All in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. We now have an action item. Dr. Arlotto, can we have your recommendation, please?
Yes, sir. I recommend board approval of the contracts listed on today's agenda, 5.01 and 5.02.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion and a second. Thank you. Any board comments or questions? Board questions or comments? Seeing none. Any public comment? Seeing none. Mrs. Howell, would you please call the roll on the consent items?
Ms. Hummer? Aye. Ms. Salvi?
Aye.
Ms. Corkadell?
Aye.
Ms. Schallheim? Oh, I'm sorry. Ms. Ellis?
Aye.
Ms. Antwine?
Aye.
Mr. Leib? And Mr. Gilliland.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you very much. We'll move to the action item component. We have item 6.01, administrative personnel appointments. As placeholder, there are none today. Item 6.02, personnel. This is an action item. Dr. Arlotto, can we have your recommendation, please?
Yes, sir. I recommend board approval that the board approve the actions as stipulated on the attached sheets.
Is there a motion? So moved. Got a motion and a second. Thank you. Any board discussion on personnel? Seeing none, Mrs. Howell, this is a vote on personnel. Would you please call the roll?
Ms. Alby? Aye. Ms. Corkadell?
Aye.
Ms. Ellis?
Aye.
Ms. Antwine?
Aye.
Mr. Leib? Aye. And Mr. Gilliland.
Aye.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you so much. We'll now move to our first reading calendar. Item 6.03, Student Sexual Harassment and Misconduct Policy Code JP. And we'll turn to Ms. Ortiz. Welcome.
Good afternoon. For the record, Jeanette Ortiz, Legislative and Policy Counsel. The Office of EEO Compliance and the Division of Human Resources is bringing Policy JP, Student Sexual Harassment and Misconduct, before you on first reading. This is a new policy which has been developed to specifically address student sexual harassment and misconduct at AACPS. The policy affirms AACPS's commitment to providing students a safe and supportive environment free of this behavior. It also specifies that complaints and violations regarding student sexual misconduct, student sexual harassment and misconduct shall be addressed in accordance with Regulation JORA, Bias Behavior and Language. And you may recall that in the Bias Behavior Policy and Regulation, we address gender-related biases, and so we thought that would be appropriate to reference JORA in those procedures. But also, JORA references that there are instances where bias may be bullying, right? So we've covered all of our bases here in just referring to the procedures under JORA. The policy will be on our website for a 30-day public comment period, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ortiz. Any board questions or comments at this point? Seeing none. Any public comment? Seeing none, so as Ms. Ortiz said, this will be on our site for 30 days, and that will go past the November 6th meeting now, so this will be on
Correct.
second reading in the evening November meeting.
Yes, correct.
Great. Thank you so much.
Okay, great, thank you.
Item 6.04 is the Quarterfield Elementary School feasibility study. This is an action item. Dr. Arlotto, can we have your recommendation, please?
Yes, sir. I recommend approval of the Quarterfield Elementary School Option D replacement.
Is there a motion to accept the recommendation? Motion and a second, and we'll now turn to a staff presentation, and then we'll entertain board questions.
Good morning. For the record, I'm Lisa Seaman Crawford, Director of Facilities, and with me is
Kyle Roof, Supervisor of Planning, Design, and Construction.
And I'm Billy Arias with Greenman Parker Architects.
the next three items presented will be the feasibility studies for Quarterfield, Rippling Woods, and Hillsmere Elementary School. I will begin with some general information that will apply to all three studies. Then we will discuss each individual school by agenda item. A feasibility study is required by the state if an LEA will be requesting state participation in construction funding. By their guidelines, the study must include one or more renovation or renovation addition options that satisfy the major educational program requirements. It must also include a 40-year life cycle cost comparison for each option considered. The studies presented today for all three schools will include the following options: do nothing, patch and paint, renovation addition, and replacement. The revitalization and modernization options of the past are now just the state IAC recognized renovation addition option. The first school on the agenda is Quarterfield Elementary, and Kyle will walk you through the executive summary, and then Billy will give us some more details about the recommended option.
Quarterfield Elementary School, located in Severn, had an official 2018 enrollment of 443 and a capacity of 463. The school encompasses 45,885 gross square feet and was constructed in 1968. Since that time, interior renovations and some systemic improvements have taken place. The consultant team, led by Grimm and Parker, examined 4 options during the feasibility study process in order to explore the full spectrum of interventions. Each option was presented to the feasibility study committee for review and comments, then refined and reevaluated until consensus on the final version of each direction was reached. The following options, summarized on pages 14 and 15, were considered in this study. The first option, option A, was do nothing. This approach proposes to make no physical modifications to the existing facility. Option B, patch and paint, consists of enhancements to portions of the building not currently in proper working order, as well as patching and painting all finishes in the facility. This option does not include any systemic upgrades to the existing structure, electrical systems, mechanical, or plumbing systems. Option C, renovation with additions. This option proposes to fully modernize the facility through selective demolition, renovation of the remaining existing spaces, and construction of new additions. This option also includes site improvements. Option D, replacement. This option proposes to locate an entirely new school adjacent to the existing Quarterfield Elementary School. The new school would meet all spatial and site requirements of the educational specification approved by this board. Now I'll hand it over to Groom and Parker, Representative Billy Harris, to go further into the explanation on option D.
Good morning. So if you guys can go to page 74 on your booklets, that kind of have a site plan that shows the proposed option and the chosen option. So the committee chose option D, which is a replacement school. This will provide a brand new state-of-the-art facility that would meet all the codes, will have the latest technology, and also would meet, most importantly, the educational requirements that we have and the adjacencies. A few of the board a few of the committee members have gone through phased occupied renovations, and they understood how challenging that was, try to move kids around within the school while construction is going on. And that kind of drove the decision to go to replacement school, because that would allow them to separate what was going on site at that moment and keep the school functional as long as the construction went on. So if you see the site plan, the brand new building is located on the southeastern corner of the site. This will allow for the existing school to remain functional during construction, and will also eliminate the need for portables while we go through construction. Currently, there's only one access to the school. We're proposing two access. I mean, our new plan will give us a safely separation between cars and buses. Cars coming in from Quarterfield Road, and buses, we're proposing a new drive from Myers Drive. That bus loop will have a single drop-off lane, and it can fit about 10 buses. The cars will come in, as I said, from Quarterfield, and they can access parking, and they will also have a single drop-off lane that, you know, parents can drop off kids safely on site. The building is a two-story building. Because it's a brand new building, it'll have all of the adjacencies required now. Some of those, as you know, the before and after care are right next to the main entrance for easy access for parents to in and out of the building. The media center is located right in the center of a school for easy access of schools, from students, and also parent after hours. The early childhood programs are located right next to the administrative area, you know, for easy control and easy access, and they also have direct access, direct, you know, egress to the outside. This footprint shows a open courtyard, and the reason why is that it's important is because we have some aircraft noise problems on site. So the open courtyard kind of helps out mitigate a lot of the sound issues that we will have on site. The idea is that we stage construction, and once the building gets finalized, and the kids would move in from the existing school into the brand new school, and then we tear down the existing school and just fill the site up with whatever, you know, site programs we have, like the bus loop and all that stuff. And if you guys have any questions, that's kind of a summary of the whole project.
Okay. Let me just preliminarily share with the board and with the staff and public before we get into board questions and comments. It's my understanding that we're going to have a number of questions on each of the three studies today. And we know your firm has handled the first two on the agenda.
Yes.
And then another firm for Hillsmere. We have a number of people who have signed up to testify specifically on the Hillsmere feasibility study, which is the third on the agenda. So what I'd like to do, if it's okay with everyone, because we've also got the lunch hour rapidly approaching, and I like giving people a chance to eat instead of powering through here all day. We'll do 6.04. We'll hear the board questions and comments and see how that flows. And then if that takes up a lot of time, I'd like to at least hear the public who's here for Hillsmere, because it may be a couple of hours before we get to that. And then we'll take a break for lunch, give them a chance to speak. And then for those who are still here for either of the other two can speak at that appropriate time as well. So again, just updating the board, I just learned that we will have some extensive questions. And I'm sorry that was the commotion that we were trying to work out up here. So we'll start with Mrs. Schallheim.
Hi, thank you for your presentation. I'm really excited about this plan, and I do have a few questions, and I'm going to try to just fire away. Hopefully we can just get some really short, succinct answers, since I do have a few of them. I noticed that the first two of our three plans didn't specifically call for geothermal or necessarily like a specific study on solar, and I'm wondering why not, and when. I would assume that in a study like this, but forgive me if I'm just being naive, that solar would be considered at this juncture. So why wasn't it considered, or geothermal, and when will it be seriously considered?
Yeah, we, just at the feasibility study, we were just looking at which option we're going to. As we get into the SDs, that's when we would do the next step, is to look at systems, especially geothermal, where we would put the pits and things like that through.
Perfect, because the third study, as you all are well aware, it was spelled out specifically, geothermal. So that's why my question appears.
Yeah,
so.
We will look at all three of them at SD stage in detail.
Okay, so is that just a style difference between different firms? Got it. All right. Next question, can reforestation occur on the construction site, on the demo site, once the construction is done and the building has been demoed? Are you planning on reforesting and the green spaces on the site plan?
It will be a requirement of the grading permit.
Great. All right. Can any building materials be salvaged from the building that will eventually be demoed for use elsewhere, like Habitat for Humanity kind of stuff? Flooring, cabinetry, anything like that?
These are older buildings. Some of the substrate, the glues that were used on this do have asbestos, so we would be hesitant to donate any material.
What about freestanding stuff like shelving or any sort of freestanding cabinetry or any of that? Do you all look for places where those can have another life?
Many of our components within the building that are not fixed to the structure actually get reused. Furniture components get moved back up to the warehouse for use at other facilities.
Fantastic. If for some reason another one of the plans were to be adopted within this, and this is just a question for my knowledge, it keeps saying that the building envelope, like if we were, I'm not suggesting we're doing this, but if we were going to do a patch and paint or something else, the building envelope would still be not energy efficient. Is there ever an opportunity to, like you would in a residential home, drill and do spray foam or whatever to make the building envelope more efficient? Are there any ways to accomplish that without building new walls?
You want me to answer that?
Yes.
Absolutely. There's way to do it, but it really costly ways to do it.
Okay.
So it's at that time it's more efficient to tear down and build new.
Got it. It came up when I was reading. I don't know what that question means, so I'm going to skip it for the purposes of timely. Skip that. Oh yeah, when you did the noise monitoring on page 128, what do weather conditions affect the readings when you measure the decibels of the planes going over?
So the way it's done, the acoustician places a monitor on the roof, a few monitors on the roof for 24 hours. That's kind of what the test is. So we record what happens within those 24 hours. So if there's, so for example, there was on Quarterfield, there was an event that the plane was 76 decibels, which is way above the average that we have. And unfortunately, we only have data for those 24 hours. But there is a BWI monitor close by in different locations, and that, the 63 kind of matches what their data shows, the BWI. So unfortunately, our report only shows 24 hours.
Right. Would a sunny day versus a cloudy day make a difference for those readings?
Absolutely.
It does. Okay. So if it was, I don't know what the weather was that day, but if it was a bluebird day, the readings could be vastly different than if it were a cloudy day or a stormy day.
I'm not sure if it's vastly different, but there would be a difference that you could tell.
Okay. I'm just curious, and some of this is from my own knowledge, y'all. So thanks for bearing with me. All right, and that was it for this one. See, I'm trying to be supportive of lunch and all that.
Ms. Antwine.
My questions involves the demolition that you talked about. I did not quite understand. The question came up from Ms. Schalheim about you reutilizing some of the material, and the answer was that because of health reasons, some of that material would not be reutilized. But what I understood, and probably misunderstood in the presentation, was that some of it would be reutilized for the reconstruction. So can you clear that up for me in terms of demolition, the reutilization of material, and the rebuilding of the school, please?
So the option selected or recommended by the superintendent is replacement. So the existing school would be used up until a point where the students would be moved into the replacement building. At that point, it would follow a similar model as Jessup. So Jessup, we built the prototype, which is similar to the one that we're proposing in this model. And then after the children are moved in, which they were this year at Jessup, we're actually demoing that building. And that's what will take place in this recommended option.
And I guess what I'm misunderstanding is what happens to the rubbish in this space. It's a lot of land, what's happening there is what I guess I'm misunderstanding.
If you have the report in front of you and you turn to page 74.
Right.
It will provide you a site plan. The dotted line where the bus loop is the existing school. So once that existing school is demoed, we will actually be building a bus loop.
Okay. Thank you.
We'll have to regrade and build the bus loop.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you both.
Thank you, Ms. Antwine. Mrs. Hummer.
Yes, I just have a quick question about the floor plan. Does Quarterfield currently have an ECI classroom, or is that something, a program addition that we're planning with the new school?
Existing floor plan on page 37 shows an ECI classroom right next to the existing pre-K.
Okay, so it does have one. I'm sorry, I wasn't sure on that, if we were adding programs in as we expand the building, or if that was one that was there. Thank you, that was my only question.
Mr. Lai.
Thank you. Just to be sure I read this correctly, as I understand it, the recommended option, the replacement option, is more cost-effective for construction at $42.9 million versus $42.1 for the renovation. And its life cycle over 40 years is also more cost-effective. And I'm correct in reading that, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lai. Mrs. Ellis.
Thank you. Do demolitions always happen outside of the school year? Or, in other words, kids are going to be going to school in the old building until the new building is built. When does the demo happen?
The demo would likely happen during that summer before.
That's my question. I was just curious about health concerns, with debris and air and so forth.
They do a really good job controlling the dust through fire hoses and other such things.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
That's a good question. Okay, any further board? Yep, okay. Further board questions or comments? Seeing none. Any public comment on Quarterfield Elementary specifically? Seeing none. Mrs. Howell, we have a motion that's been seconded to adopt the superintendent's recommendation. Would you please call the roll?
Ms. Hummer?
A very enthusiastic yes.
Ms. Alvey?
Aye.
Ms. Corkadell?
Aye.
Ms. Schalheim?
Definitely aye.
Ms. Ellis?
Aye.
Ms. Antwine?
Aye.
Mr. Leib? Mr. Gilliland?
Aye.
Motion passes 8-0.
Dana, you think 15 minutes? Okay. Okay. That moved a little more quickly than I initially anticipated. So I appreciate that. Let's move right now with item 6.05, Rippling Woods Elementary School Feasibility Study. This is an action item. Dr. Arlotto, can we have your recommendation, please?
Yes, sir. I recommend that the board approve the Rippling Woods Elementary School option D2 replacement.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. Board questions and comments. Mrs. Schalheim.
Rippling Woods, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, got it. Okay. All right, I'll be super quick. Oh, yes. So I'm on page 31, and I wrote myself a post-it note to ask about something about the MAA waiver. So that would be a waiver to build in the flight path, right?
Yes, anytime you're above 65 decibel threshold, you will apply to the MIA.
And what would it take to get such a thing?
We've done similar on Glen Burnie Park, and it's just going through the process of permitting and going to the MAA themselves and asking for a variance.
Okay, just for my own personal knowledge, thank you. And again, I'm not suggesting that I would be for this option, but I'm just asking for my own personal knowledge. On page 66, if one of the two renovation plans were to pass, the students would be split up amongst different schools during the construction, is that correct?
Both the renovation addition, one of the options, C1, and I believe D1, provides swing space where we would utilize another facility to help house the school.
But not everyone would be necessarily, the whole community might be split up, right?
That's an option.
Okay. Is that a likely option?
Given the space constraints of the existing school and the flight path and the availability of soundproof or sound-resistant portables, it's highly likely that they would be located somewhere else.
Okay. Let's see here. I might be almost done. Oh yeah, I had the same questions about weather conditions that you answered that in my first set. And then again, just, so it's purely style again, that geothermal wasn't called out specifically. Because when I saw that in here, I was like jumping up and down. I didn't see that in here, but that doesn't mean you're not going to put as much weight as the third plan at least outlined for us when you're doing the design, right? And solar?
Yep.
Okay. All right. I think that's it. I'm still trying to understand one of my other post-it notes, so I'll let others go, and then I might. So thank you.
That sounds like a plan. Mrs. Hummer and then Ms. Anschwein.
It's the similar question as before. I see that the new plan has an ECI, but the old plan does not. So that's an expansion of service that we'd be, expansion of programs that we'd be offering with the renovated space.
Do you think this is going to go
We believe so.
Yes.
I think. I'm sorry, I'm catching
I just
up
don't
on
know
that.
off the top of my head if
Right,
it's
when
right
I'm
in
looking
there.
at, it's complicated in there, but I don't see an ECI on the original, so that would be great that we're offering another. And I will just add, having been in Rippling Woods, I am so happy for them that this is happening, because this is one of the most challenging schools I've ever been in. And while I believe all of these need to be done, I'm especially happy for the teachers and staff and children at Rippling Woods. So, great job.
I do want to add, it's one of the last, it is the last elementary school that's open space.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Schallheim.
Okay, I figured out my question. On page 68, under challenges, it said buses, and this again for my own personal information, buses and cars would still utilize the same entrance. Is that the entrance where the cars travel or the entrance to the school?
It's that Fern Road entrance.
Okay, great. That was it. See?
Can I
You all proud?
Can I add to that? So there's, once you enter the site, we do the same thing. We separate buses and cars. It's just that Knollfield Road is the only access point to the site. So that's what, we're referring to, a shared site between, because you have to enter and exit through that road.
And just for the record, just because I give you a stare doesn't mean you need to turn your light off. I never want to silence it. So any further board questions or comments? Seeing none, any public comment on, what are we on, Rippling Woods? Seeing none. Okay, Mrs. Howell, we've got a motion and a second to adopt the superintendent's recommendation. Would you please call the roll?
Ms. Hummer?
Another very enthusiastic aye.
Miss Alvey?
Aye.
Miss Corkadell?
Aye.
Miss Schulheim?
Aye, thank you.
Miss Ellis?
Aye.
Miss Antwine?
Aye.
Mr. Leib? Mr. Gilliland?
Aye.
Motion passes 8-0.
Great, thank you. So this moved much better than I thought, so thank you to everyone for this, and thank you, sir, for your firm's work on these two. We'll move
Under
to
promise, over deliver.
item 6.06, Hillsmere Elementary School Feasibility Study. This is an action item. Dr. Arlotto, can we have your recommendation, please?
Yes, sir. I recommend board approval of the Hillsmere Elementary School Option 4A replacement located in infield.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
We've got a motion and a second, and now presentation.
It'll follow the same format.
And ma'am, if you'd like to introduce
Oh, I'm
yourself
sorry.
as well.
Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Oh, hi, I'm Janet Patterson, and I'm with Goodrow Architects. I'll be the project manager.
Great, thank you for being here.
All right, Hillsmere Elementary School, located in Annapolis, had an official 2018 enrollment of 390 with a capacity of 509. The school encompasses 45,885 gross square feet and was constructed in 1967. Since that time, minimal interior renovations and some systemic improvements have taken place. However, no significant renovations or additions have occurred since that 1970 or 67 date. The consultant team, led by Goodrow, examined 4 options during the feasibility study process in order to explore the full spectrum of interventions. Each option was presented to the feasibility committee for review and comment, then further refined until a consensus was made on the final version. The following options are summarized on page 5 of the report. Option 1 is do nothing. This approach proposes no physical modifications to the facility. Option 2, paint and patch, consists of enhancements to portions of the building, but does not include systemic improvements to the mechanical, structural, or plumbing systems. Options 3A and 3B are the renovation addition options with and without swing space. These options will fully modernize the facility, with the only difference being that we explored the use of an off-site location to house the school during construction, also known as swing space. Option 4A and 4B are the replacement with and without swing space. One option was to replace the school on top of the existing, and that would require swing space of moving the students out. The other one, the selected option by both the committee and the recommendation by the superintendent, is to relocate the replacement, or actually place the replacement in the field next to the school. Jeanette will further explain option selected.
Yes, hi. So the option that we're proposing is a prototype option that will have a central corridor with the public space off the corridor with 2 academic wings. One of the wings will be a one-story wing, and the other one will be a 2-story wing. We did meet all the ed spec requirements with this proposal. We also will meet all ADA accessibility, building code. We will also be going for a LEED Silver certification on this school. We located the school in the southeast quadrant of the property, which would be located over the existing field right now. We did that because we were trying to be cognizant of the fact that the Chesapeake Bay critical area is located in the the southwest corner of the property. You guys can turn to page 107 and 108. That shows everything. So we were trying to minimize the impact on the critical Bay Area, which we feel like we accomplished with this scheme. So also notice that we have separated the bus lane with the parking and the parent drop-off. So that's going to be 3 curb cuts. This is going to be an advantage during construction because we will be able to have a separate construction entrance and a separate, that will be separated from the school, the existing school. So minimal, if we do this option, it would minimally impact the school and they'd be able to stay, which is a big deal. What else do I want to tell you? So once again, they would be able to stay, the students would be able to stay with the staff. the car queuing, another item that we really worked on was the fact that they had an issue with cars queuing up in Arundel on the Bay. We've actually created a queuing lane for cars that would accommodate about 35 cars. So that's about it. Any questions?
Great, thank you so much for that presentation. We'll start with board questions and comments, and we'll start with Mrs. Schallheim.
Thank you for this. I'm also very excited about this plan, like I was with the other two schools. I'm really glad to see some progress of getting rid of buildings that have served out their useful life. I have a few questions for you. The first would be on page 16 with regard to the existing site amenities and memorials. Under Plan 4A, the recommended plan to replace, will care be given to preserve all of these and display them in their new home?
That's our intention.
Okay. And with the ones that are built into the wall, the mosaics and such, are we able to demo in a way that will preserve that?
We would likely be able to saw cut that out and take it.
Fantastic. And this will also require a reforestation plan, correct?
Yes.
And when you do that, I think I read it, although to be honest, it was like a ream of paper between the three, so forgive me. Do we reforest with native species?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
that's a
Okay, good.
requirement.
Good. And a variety, right? So not just a singular, okay. Okay, sweet. All right, awesome. And just like the other plan, things that aren't physically nailed to the floor will find a new home if they're able to be relocated, like cabinetry, et cetera?
Yeah, that's our standard practice.
All right, great. All right, only, I think, two more. Okay. Obviously, that includes like desks and stuff if they're not going to...
Most of that is desks, yes.
All right, great. Oh, yeah. I have to say, I'm sure you heard the other, my comments on the other two. Thank you for considering geothermal out of the gate, and I really hope that you all utilize that. And solar, please. Let's see. I think I only have one more question. So in terms of solar, what are the options for that, given the cost per kWh in this area and the cost of steel? Would that be, if you all were to trample down that road, and I hope that you do, would it be on the roof, or would there be an opportunity to utilize other ways to use solar, like covered parking or things like that?
We'd have to further evaluate that in the next step if replacement is selected.
Did you have something else?
No, I was going to say we were going to have to reevaluate.
All right, y'all. I think that's it. I'm really excited about this. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Lybe and then Mrs. Ellis.
Just like to add a little history to today's discussion, especially at the last school for Rippling Woods, when Ms. Crawford said this was our last open space elementary school. Back in 2005. Now, many of you didn't follow the school system in 2005, but I did. And Superintendent Eric Smith entered into an arrangement and an agreement with county government and County Executive Janet Owens and the County Council that through a process that the MGT study came from, that the school system, the board, and county government would enter into an agreement whereby we could all be supportive of our school construction program and ensure we have a continued process that wouldn't be interrupted by political whims of either party. And we're really starting and we're seeing the benefit of that today. I mean, the amount of schools that have been renovated or replaced in the last 10, 15 years is quite a record for Anne Arundel County. Prior to that, replacements of schools were done on backs of envelopes and deals in back rooms. Now it's the public's involved from the very beginning. We have confidence in what is going to be next, and we have confidence that our political leadership is going to support that. So I'd just like to put a shout out to our previous school administrations. our 4 superintendents we've had since then, the numerous board presidents and board members, our county council and our county executives, that they've held true to their word. And our citizens and our students are greatly benefiting from this. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Mr. Lai. Mrs. Ellis.
Yes, thank you so much for that history, Mr. Live. It's very educational for all of us. So the previous 2 presentations, as a layperson, I was able to look and determine why you were recommending the plan that you were. This one, can you tell me the main driving factors, the cost, what puts 4A above 4B for your recommendation?
Certainly cost is a factor, and we can do this more cost effectively. The other is that with B, it would require us moving students. So what you're talking about in B, the difference is same building put on the existing footprint of the school. So we would have to move the students out, tear down the existing school, and then build on that footprint. And this allows us to build, leaving the students in place and not having to move them. And we can do that more cost effectively. And so we think that's the best option, and I know that's what the committee was recommending as well.
Thank you.
Mrs. Hummer.
Yes, I want to add on to what Mr. Live said, that this plan that was created in the amazing partnership between the county and the school system to continue doing these. The original plan was for 10 years, that all these schools would be done in 10 years, and then the recession hit, and we didn't get there. But I'm correct in saying these are the last 3 from the original top priority list. Is that correct?
I don't have it in front of me.
Well,
it's
but
pretty
we
close.
have approved. We have
Right.
approved moving forward.
Right.
So
Right. The old mill is. Yes.
we are finally acting on the last from the original list, and we've actually started on the updated list as well. But it took a little bit longer than the 10 years, but it was an amazing commitment by the school system and the county to get this. And so I'm thrilled, and I know all of those who've been working for this for so long are glad to see that we've gotten through the next priority, and hopefully we can keep on track for the 10-year for the next list as well. So thank you all very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Hummer. Any further board questions or comments on Hillsmere? Seeing none, we'll now turn to public comment. I've got 4 cards, but certainly anyone else who's you're welcome to come forward. India Oaks, Bonnie Clark, Sarah Koster, and is it Cassie Heckman? And anyone else at this time, please, 2 more seats.
Sit down.
Oh, yeah, sit down.
Don't stand. Come stand.
Good afternoon. India Oaks, parent and alumni of Hillsmere Elementary School. What can I say besides what a pleasure it is to finally be talking about something positive for once, as we move closer to the long overdue renovations to a building whose populations have contributed so much to both the immediate community and our school system as a whole over the last 52 years. Hillsmere was such a special school when I attended in the early 80s, and it remains just as special now. Yet the building has not kept up with the growing population, nor advancements to enhance our learning process, not to mention it has not even have a sprinkler system all these decades. And while it has been nice to compare stories with my son about the exact same classrooms or the stage we both have used, the bottom line is change is needed. It's needed now, and it has to be the right change. And so, I am adding my support to the Feasibility Study Committee's recommendation to pursue option 4A, which is building a new school on the field. As has been stated in the report, and by others, this option minimizes any disruption to students and staff during the construction, by allowing them to remain in the current building with no interruption. The design of the new building is also the most ideal out of all the options, with the administrative offices located near the front, and the media center, gym, stage, and cafeteria all located in what I believe is the most ideal placements. And while I still wish there was no cell phone antenna next to the school, at least option 4A moves the building the furthest away from where the antenna is, going from approximately 73 feet from the actual building to just over 300 feet. There are many more reasons why option 4A is the most ideal, but all you need to do is look at the comparison chart in the feasibility study report to see why. So I will just finish by saying thank you again for finally moving forward with the renovations, and I hope you pursue option 4A. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Cassie Heckman. I'm currently serving as PTA president for Hillsmere Elementary. Much like India Oaks, I also attended Hillsmere Elementary in the mid-'80s and early '90s. Much like her, I have conversations with both of my children who are in attendance about the nostalgia of the building. I mean, it even smells the same. It's literally the same place. However, as we know, times have changed a lot since the 1980s, and I was very, very privileged to serve on the feasibility committee this summer, and we looked at every option imaginable, and 4A was the resounding choice of the committee. I think at one point had almost 20 different floor plans and options, and this was a unanimous selection for our committee. I think one of the things that it really addresses well that our current building does not address is security needs, which I know our school community is really excited about because that is lacking in our current building, as well as we always talk about the lack of air conditioning in our current building. So I think we're really excited for our students to have the opportunity to eat lunch and have gym, and even we have a huge Hillsmere Theater Company that is new to our school, and unfortunately at our performance this year, it happened to be one of those 90-degree days, and we had literally at capacity in our gym, and it was miserable. So we are very much looking forward to having air conditioning in our facility on a regular basis. So I thank all of you so much for funding the feasibility study and the willingness to move forward, and we very strongly support option 4A in our community. So thank you.
Thank you. Was that for Lion King?
It was for Lion King.
Lion King's supposed to be hot, isn't it?
Yes, it was very jungle-like and humid at the performance.
Hi, thank you for hearing us today. My name is Sarah Koster, and I'm the mother of 2 current students and 1 future student at Hillsmere Elementary School. And I'm also a neighbor in the neighborhood directly across the street from the school, Black Walnut Cove. I want to thank you for moving forward with this funding. We just got an email this morning about the school being chilly and for our students to bring sweaters and jackets. And so I think you can, as we've heard, this is a long time coming and a very timely thing, so we're appreciative. I'd like to voice my recommendation as well for 4A, the replacement in the field without a swing space. This is ideal for not having to move our students out of the school, which would be least disruptive to all of us. And I also think it's safer for those of us in the neighborhood across the street. There's a crosswalk. If you can look at the plans, you'll see the new building will be directly across from the current crosswalk that crosses Arundel on the Bay. As it is right now, it's not, and so a lot of students and parents do risky behavior and try to cross at the curve in the road there. So I'm really excited to see the plan. There's also a wonderful playground across the street from the school that now will be directly across and safer to access for our students. Also, as you've heard mentioned, the safety features of the new building are something that unfortunately in our current society we are concerned about and are very excited to see in the new building. So thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Bonnie Clark and I am a parent of a near future student as well as a future student at Hillsmere Elementary. I'm also a board member of the Black Walnut Cove community, as well as a liaison for the Hillsmere HOA and Arundel on the Bay HOA board members. I'm speaking as a parent of the student as well as representing Black Walnut Cove and these other neighboring communities. Our neighborhood is located directly across the street from Hillsmere Elementary, and we comprise 117 houses. Many are made up of young families that attend or are planning to attend Hillsmere Elementary. The physical condition of the school has come up many times over the years at our community board meetings. While we know Hillsmere Elementary School is a wonderful community and school, we have found that we have a high turnover of younger families in our neighborhood and on the Annapolis Neck Peninsula. We've been informed that the decision to leave this area many times has to do with parents' concern over the condition of the school, the health and safety and security of the school, as well as the future state of the school. As I mentioned, while there's great hope for Hillsmere to be rebuilt, the future state of the school is of concern as well. We would highly like to encourage option 4A in today's vote to begin new construction next to the existing school. We believe this option will most benefit the current students and greatly limit disruption to these students' elementary educational experience, as well as ease parents' concern. I also just wanted to thank you for sharing the history and the work that's been done since 2005 and adding in the recession. It's easy to get frustrated and ask why, but knowing that history is extremely helpful. Thank you for your time and consideration today, and I look forward to sharing the results of today's vote with our board and community.
Thank you so much.
Good afternoon. My name is Kinley Bray, and although I didn't have a chance to sign up to speak, I'd just like to echo the comments of my fellow parents at Hillsmere. I'm a resident of Arundel on the Bay, and I have a second grader at Hillsmere and a 2.5-year-old who will attend Hillsmere eventually. And so, as you might imagine, the timing of the construction is very heavy on my mind. Is this going to happen while I still have students at Hillsmere has been a question for some time. So I appreciate what Board Member Leib said about the MGT study, and I've been following it very closely for quite some time, and I'm thrilled to hear that the board is finally moving forward, and I commend the committee for all of the time and effort that they put into really searching through all of the alternatives, spending the time to visit other schools, spending the time to think about what would be best for our school. And coming up with this recommendation. I urge you to support option 4A, most particularly because it allows us to keep our students on site throughout the construction. Not only is that a cost factor, but it is a huge, huge inconvenience for students and families, as I'm sure you've heard with the other construction projects which you've had experience with, where students are having to report to other schools. While that's an inconvenience on our community as a school, it's also burdens the surrounding community because you're putting so many more cars on the road, buses are traveling longer. There are impacts that ripple out with having students in swing spaces during construction projects. And finally, I'd just like to add that and echo the concerns or the comments from the folks in Black Walnut Cove. In Arundel on the Bay, I moved there in 2013, and many of our students are not, or many of our families do not have students that are attending Anne Arundel County Public Schools. I'm a product of public education. I'm a proud product of public education, and I moved to the Annapolis Neck and specifically to the Hillsmere district because I had heard such wonderful things about Hillsmere. And not every family has had the benefit of the word of mouth that we had about what a robust community Hillsmere has created, and with the teachers who have been there for quite some time, with families like Cassie's, like India's, who have alumni. But this is a situation where the book does not match its cover, and having the cover match the book, I think will have huge impacts on the pride of Hillsmere and getting other people to be involved and support our public schools. So thank you.
Thank you, and thanks to each of you. Any further public comment on this item? Oh, I'm so sorry.
That's okay. Stephanie Reynolds, West Bay. I similarly didn't get a chance to sign up, so appreciate being able to comment. Adding my voice to the choir here on option 4A for Hillsmere Elementary School. I have 2 students there now, and particularly the idea of being able to have the new school be built adjacent to the existing school to minimize disruptions is really important to our community and to my family. You hear that in a boardroom or on a piece of paper and you say, oh, that's good that we're minimizing disruptions. But when you try to look at it through a student's perspective, this could be a third of their time in elementary school, and having a continuation of them being able to go to the same school and really fostering their love of the school and their early love of learning is incredibly important. So thank you to all of your work so far, and again, I support option 4A.
Great. Thank you, and thanks so much for your patience. Any further public comment at this point? Seeing none. Any further board comment? Seeing none. Mrs. Howell, this is a vote on the Hillsmere Elementary School feasibility study adopting the superintendent's recommendation. Would you please call the roll?
Ms. Hummer?
Another enthusiastic aye.
Ms. Alvey?
Aye.
Ms. Corkadell?
Aye.
Ms. Schallheim?
Aye, definitely.
Ms. Ellis?
Aye.
Ms. Antwine?
Aye.
Mr. Leib? Mr. Gilliland?
Aye.
Motion passes 8-0.
Great, thank you. We don't often get applauded in here, so that was a good. I think we're moving through this pretty quickly. So we okay to? All right, good. So item 6.07 is the 2019-2020 Board of Education public session hearing and workshop date change, and just by way of reference, as the superintendent just announced the graduation timeline and calendar today, we do have a board meeting scheduled, and we need to have Board of Education members at graduations and so what we have, the request now is to move our June 3rd, 2020 meeting from being a day meeting starting at 10 a.m. to being an evening meeting starting at 7 p.m. Is there a motion to make that change?
Moved.
We've got a motion and a second. Seeing any board discussion? Seeing none, Mrs. Howell, would you please call the roll?
Ms. Hummer?
Aye.
Ms. Alvey? Ms. Corkadell?
Aye.
Ms. Schallheim?
Aye.
Ms. Ellis?
Aye.
Ms. Antwine?
Aye.
Mr. Leib? Mr. Gilliland?
Aye.
Motion passes 8-0.
Great, thank you. We okay?
We have a 5 p.m. graduation.
We'll figure it out. I don't think so. Okay, we'll now move to our review items. We have 2 today. Item 7.01 is award of contracts. Are there any board questions or comments on this item? Any board questions or comments? Seeing none, any public comment? Seeing none. Yeah. Okay, we'll now move to item 7.02, policies and protocol regarding spectators at sporting events. There is no formal staff presentation, but this is an opportunity for board members to ask questions. And we'll start with Ms. Antwine.
Thank you, President Gilliland. Sitting in this position, I came on board focusing on utilizing decisions that work for the best interest of our entire school system, all of our students, all of our teachers, all of our administrators, all of our support staff, our board members and otherwise that make up the system. I also was very focused, and still am, on our community relationships. What prompted me, as I've shared several times before, to put my name in the hat as an elected official with the Board of Education were the students who cried out about bullying, about discrimination, about racial incidents. And I was thinking, well, you know what, if Antwine gets on there, that will not happen on my watch, right? But it's happening. And so I empathized with the prior board. These decisions are tough. And in tough times, You need tough responses. Therefore, I requested, after working with other board members, that we relook at our policies on how we address spectator sports, the actions of our public, as well as especially our students and our own staff. Look at those policies and protocols to ensure that we are doing all that we can to prevent harm in our schools, to prevent hate and bias on our school grounds, racism, and other entities that work to create vulnerabilities in our system. So that is a little bit of the background based on this request. I also request that when we address these policies, we bring them up not only for review, but for action.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Antoine. We'll go with Ms. Alvey and then Mrs. Schallheim.
So I definitely respect that you brought this to the board, and I think it's something that's really important and should be addressed. That being said, as far as my understanding goes as a student, and you all can correct me, but whatever policies that we apply for behavioral issues during the school day also apply at any sporting events. So I'm well aware, and my peers are well aware, that if you are on school grounds during a school event, if you do something wrong, you will be punished the same way you would be during the school day. I understand that the environment created at these sporting events is different than sitting in a classroom, but from my perspective, it is made clear to all the students by our administrators that the same policies apply. So that's my understanding, and I just wanted to put that out there.
Thank you, Ms. Alvey. Mrs. Schallheim.
Is anything distributed from the schools to the parents, or more importantly from the schools to the students, to, there's a fine line between free speech and in terms of clothing, whatever, or accessories, and things that might be can go down a path to incite violence or to create a bias situation, et cetera. And I would never suggest trampling free speech, but are students ever cautioned as to what they should and should not bring to a sporting event?
Good afternoon, Ms. Schallheim. Thank you very much for that question. If you don't mind, I would like to also have the members that are with me today introduce themselves so that you know who's here with me.
Sure.
I'm Doyle Batten. I'm the head of security for the school district.
Clayton Culp, coordinator of athletics.
And so your question involves an answer that I think Ms. Alvey sort of touched on. If sporting events or anything of this nature is an extension of the school day, then the rules that apply during the school day are enacted. And so if the item of what you're referencing causes a disruption, that is definitely when the school administration then takes action. So your second part of that question, are they ever reminded? Absolutely. During the code of conduct lessons, I don't know how each principal does it a little bit different depending upon the size of their student population. So frequently it's if we know that we're going to have a contest and we're going to, it's the home school and you're hosting the contest that day during announcements, it happens. But also I attend a lot of football games across this county where at the beginning of the contest, that announcement is also made. So it's also live and well in the athletics handbook, which can also be accessed on our website. So the students are well aware of the expectations, and that it is an extension of the school day, just like we would expect them to behave in a certain manner at the aquarium. If they were going on a field trip to the aquarium, you represent your school inside the building and outside of the building.
I just, we've now had a couple, at least that I'm aware of, incidents, and it's only the beginning of the school year. So I wonder if there was a disconnect made, if there was a missed opportunity, because I would expect this. Well, I don't expect this ever, honestly, but you know, as the school year goes on and kids are focused on other things, maybe some things fall by the wayside, but the beginning of school year, right after you're handed that book, and then now a couple things have happened, it just makes me ask why.
That's also another good question. I don't believe there was a missed opportunity. I think this was actually an opportunity taken by our students, because football games, as I said on, I forget what night it was, Tuesday night now, frequently our students don't go to football games to watch the football game.
Sure.
And they use it as a social gathering opportunity. And the board frequently asks, what can we do better as a community? And this is not a popular answer, but I would caution parents against dropping their children off at any of these events without supervision. It doesn't have to be their supervision. It could be, you know, you're going with a neighbor, and I know. But the stop, drop, and roll is not.
Unless there's a fire.
Right, unless there's a fire, is not, something that is, you know, Friday nights under the lights has really changed over the years. And that meshed with the atmosphere that we are in socially, that poses an issue, not just for our school system, but our team has been reading across the country. And so we will continue to put things in place to help mitigate those. But again, just like when we are within the school day and the walls of the school, to say that we have the power to stop a student from saying or behaving inappropriately, I think is not reasonable.
Oh no, I know, and please don't misunderstand me. I'm not suggesting in any way that that you all aren't doing a fabulous job every day, and I know you are. And again, I know this has been a rough week, so is there another way we can, with regard to not just dropping kids off, reiterate that more often and more clearly to parents? I know we can't control what people do outside of the school day, but I do agree with you. It's become over time from cheering on your team and having good sportsman like behavior towards the opposing team to what we have at the present moment, which doesn't, I don't think, I'm not sure that football is even in that anymore. So, you know, so I just hope that we continue to reiterate that to parents and remind students. And then I hope that the whole circling up occurred after both.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Schallheim. Mrs. Hummer, and then Ms. Alvey.
So let me start by saying I am a parent of multiple high schoolers. I have attended multiple football games in multiple venues already this season, and I have always been very impressed by the staff that is there and the police presence that is there and how they were working together. I was at a game just a couple of weeks ago, and I was speaking to a staff member, and as I spoke to them, a police officer came up to say, hey, we're keeping an eye over here. They were communicating continually to looking for anything that's out there. So I feel the presence is very there. I've also heard multiple times from all of my kids' high schools this year about the exact thing you're talking about, the behavior that's expected at all events. As a parent, I've gotten things from the principal in the newsletters. I've received calls. One of the schools sent out some very directed things, some changes they were making to make it safer and telling parents these are the expectations. So I think it's putting out there very well. We all know, and I can say this because I have almost 5 teenagers now, they don't often think long term, and so they act without thinking. So even though they know better and they've heard all this, they sometimes don't act as they should. As Ms. Antwine brought up about making sure that our policies are covering these issues, that's something we always need to keep in a focus. But I do believe just over the past couple of meetings, we have shown great evidence of that as we've passed our bullying policy and our bias policy, and it's very clearly stated in there that these expectations carry over to all school events. And we keep putting that in the forefront, that they don't stop being students right away. And another thing that I think this brings up, as we've talked about what are the kinds of shirts or hats that people can bring, you know, we all know that freedom of speech does not end at the school door, and how we react to it is very, you know, we can be offended by speech, and how we react to it is the thing. I think it's groundbreaking for this school system and this board that we put forth the Global Community Citizenship class, which has as a main focus for it to teach our students to talk to each other in a respectful way when they disagree, so that if somebody is wearing something you find offensive, that you can have a discussion, hopefully, a respectful discussion rather than an altercation. And I am hopeful that as that class progresses that we will see that carry over to more and more of our students and into more of our venues that are out there. But it is an ongoing thing, but I just want to say I appreciate it, having seen it firsthand multiple times and seeing how well it's working. I want to thank you all for all you do at our sporting events.
I just wanted to add that it's frustrating for me as a student to see that my peers across the county are using football games as an opportunity to be disruptive, but I do want to bring light to the fact that football games are such a crucial part of the American high school experience. So although we say that, yes, there are issues there and people are using it as a way to express their political affiliations or other beliefs that they have that may be disturbing to other students, that you keep in mind that adding more security isn't always the answer, in the sense that there will always be that one kid. And a lot of times the rest of the school community, which is me and my friends, get punished for that one kid making that wrong decision. Just know that when I go to a football game, I'm at the very front hollering my Panther pride.
I saw you on Friday. We all saw you on Friday, yes.
We're there for positive experience, and I just want to clarify kind of, again, I'm here to bring the students' perspective that we care about football games, we care about pep rallies, we care about these events as a positive experience for us and being a high school student. So yeah, those are just my thoughts.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Alvey. Ms. Antoine.
Thank you all for a colorful and positive discussion that could easily go wayward if we don't focus as a board. So with that, I motion for next meeting that we, as an action item, review for first reading our policies J, C, D, and KG. That those policies concern school attire and appearance. It also concerns violence and vandalism on any of our grounds at our schools. I introduced those as our first policies that we take time to review, and that's only because I just got this information. Otherwise, I would introduce more policies. But I think we need to take action beyond what we are taking, because the deterrence is obviously not in place. And this can become extremely volatile. People were hurt and are being hurt physically, mentally, and otherwise. We have an obligation to rectify this within the parameters of student rights, as well as the parameters of our roles and responsibilities. So the motion is that we bring up for first reading policy JCD and policy KG for next meeting.
Okay, there's a motion. Is there a second to Ms. Antoine's motion? Is there a second? Seeing no second, Mrs. Corkadell, would you?
Even though we don't have a second, I would like to offer the board, we can, policies are as part of our policy and as part of state obligation of duties, does require that the policy committee review policies, and I am happy to expedite that and work with staff to see how we can make that happen for you. And we can work through I think if we work through a little bit of the quorum issues, we would be happy to have you there during its review and recommendations as appropriate, if it would please the board.
Thank you for that, Ms. Corkdale. I want to make it clear that I didn't have to make the motion for these policies to come up. I'm doing this as a formality. I would then request that these policies come before publicly, that we review and put them out for first reading. This is important, and we need to be able to do that. If the policy committee would like to bring it up in the reviews on those committees, which are public reviews, I'm for that as well. But we need to take action on these policies and update them as a preventative measure for what's going on in our schools and obviously outside of it. A police officer is still down to this day because of violence that was incited on our grounds. We need to do something, and that is my position.
Thank you, Ms. Antwine. Just as a point of clarification, to get to the first reader, the policy committee typically does that in advance of that so that we can have additional public optics and an opportunity for legal reviews before it's presented, so that we can be presenting all of those options that you may want to prior to coming to here. And that is part of what we have to do.
I understand that. I understood that going into this motion, that is the protocol.
Right.
I understand that. What I also understand that is that when you bring them up, we will hash out other things that may need to be brought out. But it does not, we do not solely, as a member on this board, I do not have the dependency of the policy committee to change, to introduce policy to the board that should be changed. That is what I'm saying. I'm also saying that I did the motion so that we as a board could vote on it for next meeting, not necessarily for revising of our policies. These policies, as I'm reading them, have content that needs updating, and we need to be in compliance with that in the first place.
Let me suggest this, because I think I hear what Ms. Antwine's saying, and I certainly hear what Mrs. Corkadell is saying, and appreciate both perspectives. You know, one of the things, you know, certainly, and you're absolutely right, Ms. Antwine, that, you know, any board member can put something on the agenda, but I think as it relates to specific policies, we're limited on agenda items versus policy items, what the state allows us to do. And if you don't mind, I'm going to ask our board counsel, Mr. Burns, to come forward to explain this better than I certainly can. It's above my pay grade, but I'd like him to at least offer. Attorneys have that effect.
Sorry about that. For the record, Darren Burns, Board Counsel. I don't think for the purpose of discussion, and certainly for Ms. Antwine's purposes, you want to get mired into all the details of policy, the policy on policy making or anything else, but just remind yourselves that you would not by your own policy be able to simply vote here unless it was by a supermajority type vote in accordance with your own policy, simply accelerate things to a first read, because you have a very detailed, and there's reasons for it, process for bringing policy forward. And whether it is because it's on the superintendent's schedule and the policy committee's schedule as a matter of routine, or whether it's because someone has a special request or the superintendent has an initiative that asks the committee for it, you still have to follow your policy. You have to follow your policy. And if you want to make an exception to the policy, you've got to follow that procedure as well. Otherwise, I think it was alluded to earlier, the appropriate thing is Ms. Antwine's concerns, as Ms. Corkadell said, would immediately get to the policy committee and follow the procedure for policy development. To simply skip all those steps would be to do something you've told the public is not your process. And so you would have to follow that policy on policy development, including any exceptions to it. And so I would just suggest that from what I could hear, Ms. Corkadell's proposed solution or response would make sense because it's consistent with your current policy and therefore would be, I think, legally appropriate.
Thank you for that. I want to add that I read what we have in our handbooks and in our policy, and I would just like to understand maybe I'm misunderstanding what you're saying, Michelle, but I'm understanding that you all, the policy committee, will review it and decide whether or not it comes before the public.
No, I can just, please clarify if I'm saying misspeaking, Mr. Burns. No, actually, the policy committee, when they do a review of whether it's a member or the superintendent or staff or department, the review process is to make sure there's a checklist that is used to make sure it is in compliance with federal state law. Is it practical? Does it include a budget that's absent? You know, all these other factors are considered. Is it deployable? And then we get that feedback. And then we recommend whether or not, is it ready to meet that need? If it meets that need, the board, that is where the policy committee's authority ends. In other words, we don't dictate whether or not something gets filtered out or not. Exactly. It would not show up on the board if it is not if it doesn't have congruency with that very defined checklist that the state requires us to make sure is comportable. Once it does that, whether or not we recommend that the policy be adopted or not, that is never the vote. The policy committee votes to say that it's ready for prime time. In other words, to avoid us creating a law that is in violation or in contradiction or prevents us from maybe enforcing another one. For example, like you saw with the bias and the bullying, we kind of did some, you know, there's moments where it's just not appropriate. But at no moment in time does any member ever have the authority to say, no, you're not allowed to. But we do have requirements of review to make sure that those checkpoints are in place and that it is following consistency of fairness for all. In other words, if we start saying that your policy doesn't have to, but Melissa's does, it from a logistical perspective is in addition to that legal. Was that helpful in understanding?
And that was helpful from that clarification, and most certainly from the legal standpoint, so I stand on what I said. In the next 2 weeks, we should be able to do that compliance, that checklist, and bring it back up before the public for first reading. It does not make sense to me.
Ms. Antoine, can I ask a question? Because I think this might get at you. When you say first reading, I'm wondering if you may mean something different. If you were saying to this board that you wanted to shine the light on the student attire policy or whatever other policy happened to be, and you simply wanted a presentation on it, or you wanted it to be here in its current version for people to look at, discuss, talk about, I'm not sure there's anything that prevents you from doing that if you have the requisite votes to make it an agenda item. You not making an agenda item as first reading because that's a process that you've adopted that there's been no vote to supersede. So if what you're saying is you simply want to bring the policy forward for people to be looked at, I don't know the last time there was a presentation on student attire. I can remember, a little sidelight, 20 years ago, the student government folks were so involved. I think I was telling Ms. Almy this. The student government leaders were involved in the student attire development policy, and it took a long time. It was a process, and it was very public, and it was a number of meetings, and the students were right here front and center. And they may be as part of what you're talking about here. But that's different than your policy development process. And when you say first reading, you'd be saying bring something back at an accelerated rate without the requisite vote of your board.
So then my question would be, what would be a feasible time
I would
frame
have to defer to the committee on that.
for that checklist to be reviewed, brought back here for us to review it, take action on it, and update these policies?
I think you'd have to ask the committee acting under the policy.
I believe that I would need to confer with staff on the complexities, and then the staff would also need to see with specificity what recommended changes are being proposed, which you could do with, and we can talk about that offline. That seems more of a process issue at this point, but with that in mind, the staff would need to make that determination because they've got to do that legal checklist. I'm not an attorney. No one on our committee that I'm aware of is an attorney, so there is a little bit of reliance there, and it's to protect all of us, including the students involved, to make sure that we're getting it right. So I would have to work with, and I'm willing and happy to to figure that out on very short order. But I don't want to place anybody in a position where they have not had that opportunity to see what they're up against to make the determination. But I can assure you that it can happen as quickly as we can get it through. And I don't see any reason why we would not be committed to it. I'm seeing some nods there from the Casella staff that they're on board with this. But I would just caution that we make sure that we get it right, because this is very important. I want to make sure we get it absolutely right, and I know that they do too, because this is important. And I don't think there'd be any argument about adding it to the calendar on an expedited basis.
I appreciate that. I appreciate you, Darren, as well. I do want to emphasize that time is of essence because of the violence that is occurring on our grounds, because of what could move from a football game and easily come into the schoolhouse, because of situations that we have control over if we take action in its due time. I do not believe we need to necessarily rush the process, but understand that these are situations that are volatile and they could get worse if we don't take action. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Antoine. Mrs. Alice.
Thank you. Just for purposes of adding to the discussion, I did not second the motion because I was concerned about the procedural aspects of it, but I concur with the urgency and the need to take a look at this. Madam Chair of the Policy Committee, is it reasonable that in your Policy Committee update at our next meeting, you can give us an expected date of first reader for that policy?
I think that we can, I will do my best. I rely upon others. I do not want to speak on their behalf or put them in a position right this minute. But I know that in that update, we'll make sure that we're doing everything we can to get this to the point that we want to. And then I will work with Ms. Antoine and any other member who wants to navigate recommendations, because really that's where we're going to be at, is a need. And I apologize, I'd forgot my mic. Oh, darn it. Sorry, guys.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I get a blue light flashing when somebody's not using their mic, that's why I reached for you.
I'm guilty.
We've got Mrs. Schalheim and then Mrs. Hummer.
So I want to echo what Ms. Ellis just said. That's why I didn't second it too, just because of my serving on the policy committee for quite a while. That I know that I was concerned about the process, not because of the content. So I definitely encourage you to look at those two policies and to, when you're discussing it with Ms. Corkadell or staff or others, know what you wanted to change. I'm known to take a policy and line item edit it at home, and so you have your suggestions ready to go. And then I also wanted to say, with regard to the previous conversation, I'm a parent of an elementary school kid, so I don't necessarily know all the ins and outs of the communication that go to parents in for middle and high school kids and for their functions. And so I'm coming from a place of ignorance and wanting to learn. So thank you for all that you all do to keep our kids safe and to keep parents informed.
Thank you. Mrs. Hummer.
Yes, I'm just going to echo again that any board member or anyone from the public can submit comments about changes or additions or amendments they would like to make to a policy and to the staff beforehand, so that can be researched and see if it would be out there. And I also want to stress to people that we have to remember too that our policies can be the strongest in the world, and they are the expectations that we have for our students and our school system. But like any law, we can set the expectations, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to obey, which is why we have the student conduct. That's why we have the expectations laid out, and then we have the code of conduct to say what the consequences will be if they do not enforce it, if they do not follow the expectations. So we need our policies to be as strong as possible, but I don't want anyone to have the mistaken belief that our policies are going to stop misbehavior, because as we said, they're teenagers. Their brains aren't developed yet, and they're going to make mistakes. And so we must continuously be educating them about what the expectations are and giving them appropriate consequences when they don't meet them.
Thank you. Ms. Antwine.
I thought I said this, but I guess I'll say it again. This is not about Candace giving you amendments to the policy. This is about the board taking action on violence on our grounds. I will give you all the amendments in the world, but we need to work together as a board to update these policies. This is not a Candace show. This is a school system that depends on us to make appropriate decisions for it. And there is of course, understanding that students will disobey, teachers will disobey, people in our system will disobey those policies, but it does not keep us from doing what we need to do to keep them updated and in line with the vulnerabilities, in line and mitigating the vulnerabilities to our system. And that is the reason for this. I'll gladly give you a laundry list of amendments that I have on just these two that I found, but I do request that this be brought up and that we move as quickly as possible to get this changed in our policies.
Okay, thank you. Any further board questions or comments? Seeing none, any public comment on this? Seeing none. The next general board meeting will be on Wednesday, October 23rd, 2019 at 7 p.m. The next policy committee meeting will be Wednesday, October 23rd, 2019 at 4 p.m. in the boardroom here. Budget committee will be same day at 5 p.m. And then just for public transparency, the Board of Education Fall Retreat will be October 29th at 5 p.m. at the Odenton Regional Library. That meeting is open to the public, but no public testimony will be taken that night. We do have one appeal that we need to consider, and with that, we'll turn to Mrs. Corkadell.
Mr. President, I move that the board go into closed session to consult with counsel to obtain legal advice on a legal matter.
Motion, second. All in favor say aye. Opposed, no. We stand adjourned. Thank you.
pagan o los tratan mal,